Hey guys, I am here to watch the Pierre Poilievre Battle River Crowfoot by-election candidates forum. This thing isn't going to matter all that much, but it was a good excuse to have a live stream, watch something collectively, talk about what's going on in politics in this fairly boring summer. But I guess really all summers in politics, at least in Canada, are super boring because there's no sessions taking place in any of the provinces or on the federal level, despite the fact that we're in a crisis. We're supposedly right now in a crisis, but Mark Carney can just tour around Canada, having coffee with the new premier of Prince Edward Island, and apparently he's doing enough to justify his position as prime minister. We have a trade crisis, but I guess that can be solved some other time after August 1st, before August 1st. Who gives a crap? Yeah. HUD says Carney is failing. Will we get an election soon? I don't think the Conservatives want an election soon. I don't think the Liberals want one either. And I wouldn't say that Carney is failing right now on a public level. It's more so, yeah, he's not really. I wouldn't say Carney is exactly failing right now. He's just doing a lot of things that I know, or at least we all know, will probably end in policy failure or bad slash mediocre outcomes. So it's not like the man has to be literally just like dying in the polls right now to be failing, but he's setting himself up for a lot of hard falls in the future. Uh, yeah, I think Miriam Rachel here as a good take. Not too many sleepy Canadians right now who will vote liberal, and that's generally what happens after a party gets elected. A lot of people are basically, like I've said in videos, willing to say, let the boy have a chance, let him figure it out, let's see who he's going to do or how he's going to perform. Uh, Ozzy says, "What time is the debate?" It's at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and of course, it's currently 6:34 Mountain Time. I just want to go live a little bit beforehand, or else it's a little bit difficult for people to catch up or be here on time if I start like right when it's happening. This way, people can kind of size up whether they want to stay for the whole thing or not. Uh, Horse Lake Ranch is out here bawling in Saskatchewan. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Horse Lake Ranch. Is there actually just a place called Horse Lake in Saskatchewan? It just feels like it was a very, very lazy name. It's like, well, we have horses and there's a lake, so it's Horse Lake. HUD says, what are we going to do if they go ahead with censorship laws? Well, I don't think if there's anything exactly you have to do. It's a bad law, and it's going to be bad if they implement it on anybody. But my thing is that for any of that stuff to get done, it's going to take years of committee meetings and hearings and whatnot. So the problem with the Liberals trying to implement anything like a hate speech law or something like that is, one, it'll be very unpopular. Two, if they try and enforce against anyone trying to arrest anybody, I think they're going to become even more unpopular. It's not like we're all going to start getting rounded up because Mark Carney doesn't like us. That's just I do find some people end up doing pushing stuff like this, like, oh my goodness, we're all at threat if they pass this. Is it bad if they pass that? 110%. At the same time, things move slower than anyone thinks. Uh, Hello, Wyatt, sending love to you from the U.S. West Coast here, pumped up to watching Pierre Poilievre in a bit. What the heck? Why are there people on the West Coast in the U.S. watching this? Unless you moved away from Canada. And someone else is saying, oh, Weaver Game says there's also Bear Lake, apparently somewhere, I assume in Saskatchewan. The debate stream is not up until 7 p.m. We're just waiting for a bit here. So, like, right now, it's just ads or whatever. So we'll just wait. Yeah, I don't really suspect that Poilievre is going to have a hard time in this by-election. If anything, it's going to be funny to see how bad someone like Bonnie Crickley is going to do, that independent candidate the media has been propping up, because she has no reason to be in this race at all. Her reason is basically, oh, I don't like that Poilievre's an outsider. Okay, well, there's a bunch of people from your riding also running, so why didn't you stay out of the race and run with one of them, like, and vote for one of them? It's basically, I wonder if somebody in the Liberal Party convinced her, just throw your name forward as an independent. We'll print up like 50 signs. We'll put them on some people's lawns. And then we'll just basically get you to do a media tour talking about how you don't like Pierre Poilievre and he and Danielle Smith are traitors and they don't understand this riding, even though Bonnie Crickley is like obviously left wing. She's just obviously very liberal with her views. And so she's living in a riding where I don't doubt she likes her riding and, like, likes the people in the riding. But being in the riding doesn't make you a good representative. I find people overemphasize how much you want a local guy representing you. Okay, well, if the local guy sucks and the guy from outside is good. Oh, well, I think most people would say, well, obviously I'd want the guy who's good. Well, yeah, that's why having a candidate from your riding or not from your riding is more of the cherry on top, whether or not clarifying how much they suck, like, hey, they're a bad candidate on all 5 of these fronts and they don't even live here. That's more like the cherry on top of a bad candidate. And the cherry on top of a good candidate is, by the way, they're also from here. Fantastic. And, like, it's mostly going to happen more often than not. Someone is going to be from the area. Um, Owen1504 says, now that the ballot is a single form, no one will know who to write since the candidate names weren't on the sheets. Well, there will probably be some way of being able to see all the candidate names before you walk into the voting booth, and you can probably take some amount of resources into the voting booth in order to remember how to spell it. At the same time, I think this is a good enough fix by Elections Canada to block the longest ballot committee. It's going to prevent these guys from doing it again, because it really took a lot of the air out of their tires by preventing them from making the ballot 2 meters long. $10 super chat for a Mason guy. Thank you for that. About to commute home to west of the GTA, so looking forward to the stream. Glad to be tuning into the best Canadian news post on the platform. Well, thank you. Hopefully I'm considered a little bit up there. I've finally gotten good lighting, as I mentioned on another video. Like, before, I had this terrible, and I can see it right there in front of me. I have this terrible 2-headed lamp. It's like for like photography. When you need light directed on one specific side of an object. And when you're filming stuff, naturally you want to be surrounded by light. And so I now have like light boxes that I can just generally point at me, and it kind of fills the entire screen up with light. But before, I was having to like balance other lights on lamps, and then I'd have this big directed light from one direction. I'd have to fill in the gaps. It was like, if anyone of you want to start a podcast, don't start it the way I did. Buy good equipment first. Don't limp along for like 2 years with the worst possible setup. J Code X says, Pierre all the way, but I have a terrible feeling a Liberal is going to win it. There's literally no chance. This is a by-election where Damien Kirk, the Conservative before Pierre Poilievre, the guy who stepped down for him, he won the riding with 86% of the vote. You really can't lose a riding like this. And the amount of people who have already voted in the by-election, which is like 3,600 people, says to me that the Conservatives are just getting people to go in and vote early, because which other party has the infrastructure on the ground to be getting their votes in early? Like, if Poilievre lost this thing, yeah, he's like gone. He's not going to be leader. You know what I mean? But that's just not going to happen either. It's just a Conservative riding. They vote Conservative. Carleton, even though I thought he was going to win, I thought that was going to be a slam dunk. In hindsight, when you do look at the riding results from previous elections, the problem with Carleton for somebody like Poilievre is that he always won that riding with like a 10% margin of victory, which isn't that much for an incumbent. And it wasn't because people hate him. It's just a riding full of government employees. And so he had to work really hard to keep his 10% margin of victory as an incumbent. And Weaver Game says, NES WrestleMania today, I think. Yes, the game behind me is WrestleMania, which fittingly has Hulk Hogan on the cover. I'm really doing a lot of I keep having to shop for more NES games to keep this gimmick up of always having a new game in the background. A few videos I didn't have a game, so I had to like put a book back there, but I just hadn't been able to get out to a store in a while to buy something new. But I think I've only repeated a game like once when I needed to fill in a gap quickly. But Faxler says, "Hey Wyatt from Provost here. Pierre is visiting my town tomorrow. Can't wait to fill the town hall." Well, fantastic. Um, John Thompson says, "Elections Canada is permitting these 202 bogus longest ballot candidates to run, and people can just write down the name of their chosen candidate on the ballot." Yes, so basically it's now a pure write-in ballot, which it probably isn't going to hurt anything. If you want to vote for a guy, you should probably be able to spell the name. Although I do feel bad if you're a Polish candidate who has a really complex last name. But for the most part, everyone who's most likely to get votes in this race are not going to have a hard time having people fill in their names. But this is going to guarantee that pretty much none of the longest ballot committee candidates are going to get a single vote because none of them are telling people to go write down their names. And it's not like with the long ballot where someone might just give up trying to find the guy they want and they just put an X, or someone just votes out of habit and they don't care who and they just walk in there and put an X. You probably get like a handful of people who do that in every riding. They're just like, well, my dad always told me to vote, and then they go in there and they submit an X and walk out. But yeah, this is they probably should still pass legislation in the future banning people from being the official agent for multiple candidates in the same riding. It's obviously illegitimate. Marco Perusa, $13.99 super chat. Thank you for that. Have you seen the latest Nanos poll? Why is part of the question Nanos report on is the coronavirus? Please look at the last poll posted a couple days ago. Much love. I will look into that one. I've been ignoring Nanos a little bit because their margins kind of look a bit iffy to me. Just like when it's post-election, 41% of people just voted conservative. Yeah, if the Liberals won, they're going to get a polling boost because they're the winners, and people tend to like to pick the winner in a poll. It doesn't mean anything right now, so a lot of people are, and also conservatives are probably not picking up the phone as much these days, so you get disproportionately more Liberals. Not like a 15% lead over the conservatives' disproportionate Liberal vote. Nanos is having the Liberals leading the conservatives by like 14, 15%. The other pollsters have the Liberals leading, as they should. The Liberals absolutely are leading now. But Innovative Research, Abacus, my two favorites, they're way closer. And Carney's doing well in Innovative, but he's not doing, plus 10 well. He's doing like plus 6 well. And even that one actually kind of spells a little bit of trouble for him because he's almost perfectly bridging the gap between left voters who left the NDP and right voters who left the Conservatives, usually older, more conservative voters who voted for Carney to like fight back against Trump. And the thing is, I don't see Carney in 2 years being able to hold on to the former NDP progressives as well as the former conservative voting retired voters. That's just not how that works. Vented says, Wyatt, are you feeling confident or worried about your dinner bet? He means me getting to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm like ambivalent to it at this point. I think I could get up. I could probably get up to 100,000. I think this just depends on the news cycle. Yeah, the last couple of months for new subscribers have been really slow, but it's post federal election. The summer, the algorithm has a bit of a soft reset, so my content gets buried for a while. And so, yeah, you got to kind of, so I wouldn't say that because I haven't been hitting the goal numbers I'd usually want in the last couple of months, doesn't mean I'm not going to get there. Because in April alone, I think we gained like 17,000 subscribers. So if I had a month like that, obviously I'm now just like single digits away. Yeah, Knights of Philemia says, I hope they reinstate the fee for putting a name on a ballot, especially because you would get reimbursed if you don't have $1,000 that will be given back to you after the 30 days. If you don't have $1,000 to run, don't run. Like we're not talking about $1,000 in like 1945, and it's just a lot of money. It's $1,000. Like people make that in like a week. Yeah, it's quite a bit of money to put up. Maybe some people are living paycheck to paycheck, and that's too unreasonable. if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're probably not running in electoral politics. And by the way, do you not have 10 friends you can borrow $100 from or whatever? But yeah. Um, Northern Berserker says, "Is Wyatt a millennial or Gen Z?" I'm decisively Gen Z. I'm just 26. I think the millennial cutoff is I'd have to be like 30 or something like right now to be a millennial. Mike Purdue, you're wrong. I'm not a millennial. Get out of here. People both think I'm much older and think I'm much younger at the exact same time. It's very strange. But for any of you who are tuning in now, we are going to be watching the candidate forum in Battle River Crowfoot with Pierre Poilievre. I believe Pierre Poilievre is going to be there, and we're going to be watching it. But it's not until 7 o'clock Mountain Time. Right now it's 6:48, so we got 12 more minutes until we're watching it. Jim Jones says Nanos is liberal, and I would say that might be true. I know that the guy who runs Abacus Data is a soft liberal, like a center left guy. David Coletto is center left. He's good at polling. Janet Brown in Alberta, she does Alberta and Saskatchewan provincial polling. She is very liberal, I believe. I've had her speak in master's courses I've been in. She's very smart. She both actually spoke at a bachelor degree class I was in, and then a master degree class too. Very intelligent, liberal, but she's extremely good at polling. And if I'm ever to bet on a poll, I would bet on a Janet Brown poll. She got the 2023 Alberta election results within literally like decimal points. She was that good. And like other pollsters that people like will cite were like 4 or 5 points off of what the NDP got, and they're 3 points off of what the UCP got. Like their polling had like no relation to the actual results. Um, Ronnie BBY says, "Got to see the NDP leadership rules. You think the party will sink? Will still be in the sink? If so, how do you think it will affect the upcoming election?" I think the NDP's fortunes are purely in the hands of Mark Carney's Liberals. If they fail, a lot of people will go back NDP. If they start succeeding wildly, you'll have a lot of people who will just keep voting Liberal instead. And I haven't seen the NDP leadership rules in depth. I've seen how short the campaign is. If anything, if I was the NDP, considering how in debt they are, I'd really drag this leadership campaign out and just use it to try and get as many donations as humanly possible. Um, Jim Jones says, "Can't overlook the impact on mature voters with this ballot change. There better be people to assist them or their escorts to help." I assume you meant like help the ballot signing. And yeah, I think even with having to sign the candidate's name, it's going to be quite difficult for some people. The good thing is the vast majority of people are probably going to vote for Pierre Poilievre, and so I think it's a name that most people have practiced writing down at least once or twice in their lives. It's not like it's anyone's ball game and there's like 20 people vying for it and they all have very complex names. I think it's be much easier than you think. Faxler says, "Why do you think Brampton and Mississauga shifted so much to the right this election?" South Asian voters are socially conservative voters. That's really it. And by the way, the Conservatives probably could have bagged the whole crowd and won most of Mississauga and Brampton if they didn't kick out Hindu candidates. There were like a lot of those ridings in Brampton and Mississauga are anywhere from 7 to like 20 or 15% Hindu. And they just decided to like not let any Hindu candidate apparently run. If you were Hindu, your chances of actually being approved in the nomination race were like zero. And so a lot of Hindu people who don't need to vote for Hindu candidates, they don't care if the candidate they vote for is Hindu or not, but they all got personally insulted when every single Hindu person was kicked out. They may have not even liked that candidate, but they found it annoying that they were just not allowed because certain people in the party didn't want them. Mentant says, "I don't think Pierre Poilievre can stop Alberta from leaving. Eastern Canada will never give up power." I would say that I also don't think Pierre Poilievre can stop Alberta from leaving, but that's because I don't think Alberta is actually leaving at all. Again, Janet Brown released a poll regarding how people feel about separation in Canada right now. I think there was a couple provinces she did, but she did Alberta. Alberta is like 34% in favor of separating. And that's a pretty easy ask at this point. I mean, you're not even getting these 34% of people to actually check off yes on the ballot and say, we're going to leave if enough of us do this. You're just not going to win. Um, the separatists, they annoy me because they don't actually hit Calgary suburbs. They do not hit Edmonton suburbs. They're just like, no, it's inevitable. We're going to win. I'm not saying that's you. You might just be looking at the environment and you're like, oh, we're probably going to leave. Things are really bad. That's a totally fine and reasonable, logical perspective. But so many people leading the independent separatist movement, whatever way you like to describe it, so many of these people just go to town halls. They talk to the same set of people everywhere they go about, they talk to the same set of people everywhere they go about like how much better things will be if Alberta separates and how Alberta's being screwed over by Ottawa. Like we know that. Does that mean the person who's not showing up to the town hall is going to vote for it? Is the retired couple from Eastern Canada who moved to Alberta 15 years ago? Are they going to vote for separatism? I guarantee you, if you door knock one of the most UCP areas of Calgary, some of the most pro UCP polls of Calgary, you will have most people being unwilling to vote for separatism. Doesn't matter how hardcore UCP they are, they're not voting for it. Yes, you can maybe win some of the rural areas, but the fact that the Republican Party of Alberta did so badly was a bit of a sign. Yeah, Sway says, I don't think they're actually leaving either. Riley Elder says, what percentage should military spending be of like actual military spending and not like the fakey metric of like the 5% where it takes into account a lot of infrastructure and whatnot? I think like 3 or like 2.5% are fine for Canada. At the end of the day, we're not America. We don't really need to do as much. Verinder Sidhu says for $2, CPC has some cleaning up to do. I would definitely say so. I am absolutely still on board the idea that the party needs to fire Jenny Byrne, terrible strategist, terrible executive director, dictatorial with how she does stuff. At the same time, she doesn't know what she's doing, which is a terrible combo. She's, what is she's what is it? Often wrong but never in doubt. Uh, Ferris Sterling says Alberta would be best becoming autonomous like Quebec, take its pensions allotments, send tax to Ottawa rather than the other way around, cut off equalization payments. And that's what I could get behind too. And that's the thing I think is self-defeating by the separatists and the independence folks. Keep pushing the provincial government to take back more control of taxes, of the police, of a lot of other things. And then you're more able, pensions, do all that stuff, then try and jump for the big goal of separatism. If you don't handle the small stuff first, why is the general public going to trust you that you can get this done? Yeah, Wheel Cranker says separatism will kill the UCP. If separatism gets within the boundaries of the party, I'm like specifically showing up to the UCP convention this November in Edmonton, despite being out in Calgary. I'm showing up for the sole purpose, not sole purpose. I just like showing up because it's fun to network. But I am showing up to vote down any separatist type stuff. This and like an independence guy like Corey Morgan agrees. In fact, he's been one of the main people saying, stop trying to turn the party separatist, win the referendum, and then get the party to fulfill what the referendum demands of them. Don't turn the party separatist, because if it turns out separatism is not popular, well, the movement's going to fail and the party's now going to fail too. It's like trying to infect everybody with a bad idea. Frap Pardon says, I think Jenny Byrne is in is in a far lesser role now than she was. I keep hearing different things though. Yeah. Ferris Sterling is right by saying the original NES WrestleMania cartridge is a banger. Totally. Rams Radar Payo Time says, Wyatt, what are your thoughts on Canada lowering port fees for cruise ships to encourage tourism to the Atlantic provinces? They get used as ports of call, but not home ports. Um, what? Yeah, they also lowered the fee for crossing the Confederation Bridge. I don't. It's fine. The problem though is, as actually Mike Milkey from the Aristotle Institute pointed out, and it wasn't something I'd thought of before, because I thought, okay, they lowered the fees for crossing Confederation Bridge. $50 sounds pretty steep. 20 sounds more reasonable. But then he pointed out only 1 million people cross that bridge every single year. And the thing is that with the Maritimes already being so subsidized by other provinces, reducing another area of revenue for the Maritimes just means that Alberta will be kicking more money into the Maritimes in order to replace that lost funding. But we are going to have the thing starting up here in about 30 minutes or so, or not 30 minutes, a minute and 30 seconds. So we'll be able to get to that forum and see Bonnie Crickley talk. I wonder if Bonnie Crickley's even showing up. Jake TM doesn't say anything for $2, but I absolutely appreciate it. Thank you. Riley Elder says, do you think there will be another party like Reform? No, I don't. And I actually heard today from somebody who would be in the know that the party is actually, from pressure from the inside, from certain sources, that they may start trying to democratize the party better to where, in theory, every riding would be up for a nomination race, which would be fantastic to have every riding, every single election has to have an open nomination, or at the very least, if there's enough people petitioning to have a nomination race against the incumbent, then you have to do it. Because right now we have, and I like a lot of the incumbent conservatives. The problem right now is that there's so much nonsense that goes on in the nominations that are held, because obviously a lot of the ridings that the conservatives can conceivably win already have MPs in them, because there was a good chance conservatives could win that riding, so they have won that riding, so there's currently incumbent. And then there is ridings that are very winnable, and then you have an MP retire, and then everyone runs to that one, whether they live in the riding, whether they're even conservative or not, because it's a conservative stronghold. So just pretend you're conservative and run for it. So every nomination is either completely rigged, or it's a bloodbath of people who probably have no business running in it, crossing like from one side of the city to another because it's the only game in town. That's the only nomination you could run in. Hank Orada says, hey, Wyatt, just a question. Do you think the Canadian universities and professors will become even more left-leaning in the next few years? Or is this the worst that it gets, UBC and U of T in particular? I think they might get more left-wing. I think the only thing that will stop the universities from shifting that way is if parents stop letting their kids go to the institutions. They start sending them to trade schools and whatnot, and U of T and UBC start having a lot of funding dry up because of it. And okay, now I think it is starting, so we can get to it.
That we are gathered on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of many First Nations and Métis peoples. We honor their history, cultures, and ongoing contributions to this region. We are committed to reconciliation and to building a respectful relationship in the spirit of partnership and understanding. On behalf of the Camrose and District Chamber of Commerce, thank you for joining us this evening's by-election candidates forum. My name is Jennifer Fossen, and I'm president of the Camrose and District Chamber of Commerce.
I agree with everyone's take on the land acknowledgement. I do not care.
In the spirit of civic engagement and community dialogue.
If anything, it's a bit of, honestly, it feels insulting to Indigenous people. Like every single time we talk about them, they're like, this used to be yours, now it's ours. Or maybe it's just everybody's land who's Canadian, so let's just leave it at that.
They are just as critical. They give us, the people of this riding, the opportunity to shape our representation and ensure our voices are heard where decisions are going to be being made. Tonight is about listening, learning, and engaging. It is your opportunity to hear directly from the candidates who are seeking to serve our community, your neighbors, your families, and your businesses
People are saying
in
the live
Parliament.
stream's a bit low, and I have this at max volume. I'm just gonna see if I can get it
Whether
somehow.
your priorities are healthcare, agriculture, rural economic development, or small business supports, tonight is the time to learn where each candidate stands. You might ask, why does the Chamber of Commerce host events like these? Because we believe in nonpartisan education, informing voters without influence or endorsement, informed decision-making, providing tools to help you vote with confidence and with clarity, amplifying the business's voice, ensuring.
Okay, you guys probably don't need to hear her talk, so I'm just gonna silence her for a second and see if we can get a better version. Maybe I'll steal the feed of like the Western Standard if they're just playing it without anyone on screen, but it's louder. Okay, is that one louder or is this one louder? Okay. Okay, dang. It doesn't look like there's anything louder than what we currently have, so let's do this.
And CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Shauna.
Well, welcome to this Cameras and District Chamber of Commerce Federal By-Election Candidates Forum. So as Jennifer said, my name is Shauna Fath, and I will be your moderator for this evening. So this program will give the candidates the opportunity to present their political platforms on issues relating to the federal government. As your moderator, I will keep a close eye on the content of the candidates' presentations. You know, we are all here to give the candidates an opportunity to express their views on these critical platform issues. All presentations will receive specified times with a warning signal when the candidate is running close to the end of their time, and that's being with two big clocks on each side of the stage to pay attention to. And so with that, I'd like to take a moment to familiarize everyone with the rules of order for the forum.
Okay, I don't think we need to hear the rules. I'll just get to this quickly. Graham, finally, son, FFIE, something, something, $5. Well, thank you for that. You have a very complicated name that I cannot say. But you say, why not just go back to Europe if you care about stolen land? No, it's like that BC NDP lady who's like going on about how we're all uninvited guests, and if you're white, you're a colonizer. I was like, then leave. If you're uninvited, then go. What is this? Like this just self-flagellating nonsense where we don't really care, but we'll just pretend like we do. Well, here we go.
And we will be introducing them in alphabetical order. Candidates will have 2 minutes to expand on their political platform, and the format of the presentation is at the discretion of the candidate, so it's completely up to them how they use those 2 minutes. The timer will give a 20-second warning, and a bell will ring at the end of the allotted time. No candidate will be allowed more than their allotted time. During the question period, I will read the submitted questions. Each candidate will have a chance to answer in speaking order. The candidate answer order will change in each round. Answers to the question will then be limited to 1 minute to maximize the number that we can ask during the time that we have allotted. We will move to the next question once those wanting to respond have been heard. And so not all candidates are required to respond to each question, but they cannot bank any time for future questions. The question period will be limited to a maximum.
Anyone complaining about the sound mixing right now? It's not me. The forum just has very low sound right now. It's just as loud as the thing is.
Will have final jurisdiction in all matters. So now a couple of guidelines for attendance.
I can try and fix it.
Please be respectful of the candidates presenting their remarks, as well as fellow community members here in attendance. Any disruption that interferes with the candidate's ability to speak may result in time adjustments at my discretion. Individuals causing delays or disruptions will be asked to leave the theater. And please note, for your own awareness, that the emergency exits are located on the left and right side of the theater. So with all of that, please join me in welcoming the candidates for this evening's forum. Welcome, everybody. So opening remarks, each of the candidates, as I said, will have 2 minutes to share their opening remarks. The speaking order will be alphabetical based on last name. And so first I'd like to introduce each of the candidates. We have Grant Abraham, Jonathan Bridges, Bonnie Critchley, Michael Harris, Ashley McDonald, Pierre Poilievre, Darcy Spady, Sarah Stanier, Catherine Swampy, and Jeff Willerton. All right, are you ready to get going, everybody? Okay. With that, I will call on Grant Abram for his 2 minutes opening remarks.
Well, let me just say thank you to the Chamber for this evening. This is desperately what we need in Canada, to have these kinds of conversations. I'm here because I've spent a lifetime watching elections be decided.
For anyone mentioning the audio, I just checked the audio on my phone. It sounds fine overall, but this is as loud as we can get.
Our structure in our Constitution. And I think that what we're really looking at here in Alberta right now is a discussion between what Canada we want to have. If it's the one that has had the West paying for the pandering to Ontario and Quebec, or whether it's one that wants to see an Alberta strong, free, and independent that can actually stand up and make a difference in this world and actually redefine Canada. And so my discussion tonight, my platform, is about a strong and sovereign Alberta and its independence. And I think there's a lot of things in Canada that we're not talking about in relation to the public forum. And I believe that farmers are producers and not polluters. I believe that oil and LNG are a requirement for human prosperity. I believe that reverse racism is racism. I believe the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to humanity. I believe that compelled speech is not.
I turned down my microphone volume on people's requests so that you can kind of equalize
multiculturalism has failed. And I believe that there are only two sexes. And one of the challenges that we have here tonight is that there's a lot of trust. And I had my trust in the Conservative Party of Canada as well. But we are facing a threat in this nation of post-nationalism. And in this last 10 years, we've had Justin Trudeau commit to Canada being the first post-nation state. We've had a severe undermining foreign interference, and Justin Trudeau has told us that COVID would provide an opportunity for a reset. There has not been one challenge to the
It was always funny to me when people this is their one moment and then they like overtalk and they don't get their point.
Good evening, everybody. Jonathan Bridges with the People's Party of Canada. First and foremost, I am a Christian, and I believe that Canada was founded on Christian values. With the People's Party, we believe that our platform is focused on freedom, fairness, personal accountability, and respect. So with all of that said, we see that there's not a lot of respect given to Alberta. We want to rework the equalization formula to create it to be something that is a hand up to provinces that need it, but doesn't maintain essentially a welfare state going forward. We also want to see Alberta be able to get its products to market with pipelines going across the country and to ports. I think it is absolutely atrocious that we're bringing in foreign oil to a country that has more oil than just about anywhere else on the planet. When it comes to small businesses, mostly what we're trying to do is to start off with paying off the deficit, which then brings lower taxes, which puts more money back in your pockets that you can then give back to your employees, which would create a much more robust economy in this country.
I cannot turn up the audio. This is how loud the actual live stream is at max.
I know there's a strong appetite for separation in Alberta right now. My goal is to bring Canada back to a place where Alberta wants to be. And I do believe that is still possible. However, I will say this, if Alberta does end up separating, I'm staying in Alberta. And yeah, that's me.
Dude, the PPC just become like another random third party. It doesn't even have any muscle to get 4 or 5% anymore.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to echo Grant's comments, thanking the Chamber of Commerce for putting this together and allowing us to have this time to discuss things all in one place without any spin or tall tales told. Myself, I am running as an independent. I don't have a party because I firmly believe that party politics would be damaging the Canadian politiscape. We are not American. We are not a two-party system. And while I may have run as a centrist with conservative leanings, I firmly believe that the Conservative Party of Canada has lost its way, and I fully intend on standing up for my neighbors. When our previous guy sells us out to let the guy from Ottawa come in, that is not right.
And you
I
get
firmly
told out
believe
leaders have
that
to
we
be
need somebody
in Parliament.
here who
He's gonna get a
understands our
seat.
local issues, who understands the issues of right to repair, who understands that we do need proper oil sands development. Yes, I saw you there. I'm well aware where you are. We do need proper oil sands development. We need proper investment towards our farmers, and we need the federal government to wake up and pay attention outside the western border of Ontario. So that is who I am. And that is what I am here for. I am here to stand up only for my neighbors. My voice, your words. I don't have anything else to say.
I don't even know what she meant by any of that. Like, we need proper oil sands
Thank you,
development. Do you just
Bonnie.
mean that you're a green person?
Michael
secretly?
Harris.
I'm proud to be here representing the Libertarian Party of Canada.
I actually know Michael
And
Harris.
why
He's
I'm
a
running
really
in
good
this
guy.
election is because I am sick and tired of Ottawa taking advantage of Alberta on every level. We have equalization where our money is being taken away from our province and being sent out east, while small towns in this riding barely have enough money to be able to repair the infrastructure, whether that be roads or water development. And we have stuff where we have supply management, where our farmers are being locked out of an industry which represents a majority of this riding. And that also increases the costs of your groceries when you go to the supermarket. We're also dealing with high taxes and high regulations where businesses are struggling to get by. I was in Three Hills the other day, and a couple of businesses told me that they are on the brink of bankruptcy. And if their taxes go up even 1%, they'll be out of business and they'll be leaving this riding. And I'm sick and tired of that. And I also am here championing the idea of self-determination. A lot of people in Alberta are wanting to see a referendum on next year's ballot to see if we want to separate from this country. And I'm here to say that we are here to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Ashley McDonald.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ashley McDonald. I'm the Green Party of Canada candidate. Thank you, everyone, for
I like
coming
how
out
that's the
tonight.
person Pierre is sitting
Also
next
for
to.
the Chamber of Commerce for setting this up. So far, I'm the oddity at the table. I'm not a separatist. I do believe that Alberta is best in Canada. Maybe things aren't great, but we're sure a hell of a lot better off without. All right. Thank you, everybody. So ultimately, for me, the Green Party of Canada, we believe that change is possible, but we have to vote for it. We can't keep trusting the same institutions that have been around, doing what they've been doing for the past, 100+ years. We as a society are at a precipice. We're surrounded by growing authoritarianism in the world. We're surrounded by climate disasters. Like I said, the rise of authoritarianism. Our hospitals are stretched beyond capacity. Our society is at a breaking point in many ways. And I believe that we need to come together as a society and vote for change. Like, we are at a precipice and we have to make a choice. Do we want to go back or do we want to go forward? We may hear a lot of rage farming from certain people, but we're not a party of that. We're a party of ideas, a party of people. We don't want to throw around a slogan. We want ideas from our leaders. We have ideas that we believe are the right ideas. So hopefully I can convince a couple of you to vote for us today. Thank you.
Like, it was just like, we shouldn't have slogans and we need
Thank
ideas.
you,
And he just kept
Ashley.
saying we were on a
Pierre
press.
Poilievre.
Sometimes that was it.
Thank you.
Remember how notice how no one clapped for Bonnie, even though
Thank
the
you.
music was propping her up.
Thank you very much to the chamber. Thank you to the fellow candidates, though I think that there are about 190 of them that are missing. Maybe that's the audience out there. But in all truthfulness, thank you to those who are putting their names forward, and thank you to the great Damien Couric, who has given me the chance to speak for the people of Canada and for Battle River Crowfoot. But most of all, thank you to Battle River Crowfoot, the region that feeds, powers, and protects this country. Feeds through the great ranchers and farmers, powers through the ingenious energy workers, and protects through the brave soldiers at CFB Wainwright. Makes me proud to be an Albertan. Now, in fairness, I'm from Calgary, born and raised, and Calgary's a little ways from Camrose, but there's a lot of shared values across this province and across this country. And my Alberta values taught me about faith, family, and freedom, hard work, helping your neighbors. And those values guided me to fight for the values of this region when I was leader of the party and member of parliament over a couple of decades, that I forced the Liberal government to get rid of their carbon tax. But, which is a local issue in rural communities, forced the debate on developing our resources, slowing down out of control immigration, cracking down on drugs and crime. And now I want to take the local issues and provide national leadership to fight against the electric vehicle mandate, because driving a pickup truck is a local issue in the communities across this region. To fight for law-abiding firearms owners, to fight for farmers, and to expand our military. These are local issues that require national leadership, and it would be a privilege to provide.
It would have been good if he could have finished that properly in terms of like had it cut up, had his thought end faster. But I gotta say though, like goodness, with her Bonnie saying like, well, he's not from here. He's not from here. I'm standing up for my neighbors. You have like, it's not like she's far left, but she's obviously in her riding a very liberal person for the riding. I find it just kind of insulting a little bit the way they did this, but still, or the way she's running this.
It's been in the area for many years.
I'll go back a bit.
I'm from Three Hills, and I don't want to be prime minister. I grew up in the Three Hills area. My family has been in the area for many years. I've worked in the energy industry. I went to the University of Alberta and for engineering, petroleum engineer for many years. I've worked in the energy industry in this riding from Wainwright to Morin to Camrose out to Brooks area. Been involved in stimulating, in cementing, in constructing, in doing intervention in wells all about this province, and more recently in the emissions reduction field. My family originally came to the Battle River in about 1905. They wandered in till about 1920. So the Spadies settled the Battle River area between Castor and Alliance. They still live there to this day.
Okay, I can feel like I can just like mute that for a little bit. I don't think we need to hear about someone's family tree at the forum. I just want to get to David Edwards for $2. He says the lighting in that hall is terrible. It's not awful, but like they have the camera pulled back really far and it's dim. If you're gonna make it look like this, you got to like zoom into them so you don't have that like black space at the bottom and the top because of either the low lighting or because the tablecloth is black. I'm not exactly like, you know, somebody maybe who should be criticizing other people's settings since mine was pretty bad up until recently, but still. Martin says for $10 says, thank you for covering this, Wyatt. Well, absolutely. Thanks for watching and thanks for supporting the show. Again, sorry, I apologize that the audio is not great from the forum. It's the forum's fault. They should have their mics turned up more. And there's only so much I can actually do to raise the volume of this unless I had extra software to basically artificially raise the volume even past what my laptop wants.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Spanier, and I am running as an independent. And one thing that I've heard all of these amazing people do is talk at you. They haven't offered you guys any solutions on what they're going to do. And that's what I want to do for you guys. I am not here to toe party lines. I am here to listen and to actually go get funding where it is needed. We have lost out enormously on the amount of funding because it has not been brought back due to party lines. And I want to bring that back for you guys. I want to help you guys build your small businesses and your agriculture and oil and gas. These are all super important issues here. And I'm listening, and the funding is there. It's just been left there. we have it, we can take it, we don't need to raise taxes to do that. And with me being an independent, I don't answer to any party. I answer to you guys. You guys are my boss, nobody else. There is no middleman here. So you can ensure that when you are speaking to me, we don't have to filter through anything.
Like she says, all these people haven't talked about actual solutions yet, and then she just starts talking about how, as an independent, I don't work for a party. It's like, oh, okay, we understand the concept.
Which we are currently seeing through Loblaws and stuff. And I want to ensure that government spending is done appropriately, and we're cutting back on that. And like I said, I want to bring funding back to this area because it's there, and we can grow this small rural community that we all strongly believe in. Thank you.
There's just nothing. There's always this person who's like this fake
Thank you,
centrist
Sarah.
who walks in and be like, I want to
Councillor
have a
Swampy.
consensus and do stuff and get stuff done.
Nanaskama mamotao mauki manito. Hi ento temtik nochkiskao. Thank you so much to the chamber for setting all of this up. And thank you so much to all of my fellow candidates for coming out here and for standing up for you. I know that Damien is in the crowd. I'll have you know I took down 4 of your signs that were still up. You're very welcome. I will not be reporting them as still up. If any of you see any of my signs out there, because there's so many, please take them down after everything's done. Let me know, I'll go get them. But
It's like she realized that was a snarky, nasty thing to say, and then she bought it back saying, oh, if I leave any of mine up, take them down. Like, what is this?
so why are we running? We're running as advocates. We want to be a voice. We want to bring issues that are otherwise ignored by the government. Issues like affordability. But
Dude, affordability is actually constantly talked about by the government, but they just don't usually have the best solutions. That's like generic.
Indigenous relations.
Oh yeah, nobody
Our
talks about that.
management, or I should say proper management of natural resources.
It means putting them
Our mental health and addictions. Our public safety and crime. Taxation. Dare I say, Trump. Small businesses and seniors.
Dude, if there was a presidential election at Battle River Crowfoot, Trump would beat Kamala Harris.
That we are all treaty people. So that separation you're thinking about has a few more people that you need to kind of talk to before that can even become a conversation. So
That's actually not how that works.
thank you all so much. I'm also going to be here to listen to your concerns. What do you want advocated? Because we all know this run really isn't for a new candidate.
Thank you, Catherine. Jeff Willerton.
You know what? I have a soft
Ladies and
spot for the
gentlemen,
Christian
my name
Heritage
is Jeff
Party.
Willerton. I'm representing the Christian Heritage Party of Canada. If you remember one line from tonight, I hope you remember this. If you always vote for the lesser of two evils, you'll always have an evil government. Like wrestlers who practice their moves beforehand and go out for a beer after the match, the mainline parties often work together. Brian Mulroney, for instance, signed the Rio Declaration in 1992, leading directly to Justin Trudeau's economy-crushing carbon tax in 2019. It's been said by many that we wouldn't have had one without the other. In 2007, Stephen Harper, along with a certain minister named Pierre Poilievre, signed the United Nations Sustainability Act, leading to Chrystia Freeland declaring a third of Alberta off limits to development a few years ago. And in 2009, the same Stephen Harper signed what was called the Codex Alimentarius. That strange sounding beast regarding the labeling of food and drugs paved the way for the Red Team's assault on our natural health products industry in 2023. So one sets up the shot, the other takes it. The cause and effect may at times be years apart, obscuring the connection, but that's how it works when you have two major parties that are wings of the same bird. At other times, their cooperation can be right in your face, like when not a single member of either party raised so much as a finger to stop Bill C-4 in 2021, which threatens you with up to 5 years behind bars if you haven't tell little Johnny that he's a boy. So to be clear, the Tories aren't the solution. They're part of the problem. They always have been. And both they and the Red Team have been working together for decades to land us in this climate change, carbon tax, gay-worshipping, freedom of speech, crushing hell in which we find ourselves. How did we get here? By bouncing between the blue team and the red team for 158 years. How do we get out of this mess? Well, by changing course, obviously, but better parties can't take government without winning their first seat. In my closing comments, I'll tell you more about what I am convinced is simply the best outside of the box political option in this country, bar none. Thank you and God bless.
I actually tend to like a lot of Christian Heritage Party people. I didn't really like the way that I thought he was a good speaker. I just didn't like. I thought a few of those things are a little dishonest. Signing on to some sort of like nice sounding treaty in '97 or like in '87 doesn't necessarily mean that you are responsible for something someone else does with it that you would have never done with it. But like usually, I think the Christian Heritage Party at its most effective selectively runs in ridings when the conservative candidate is too socially liberal, and so they run a socially conservative candidate to basically
To
hurt them.
respond have been heard. Again, I will say candidates are not required to respond, but they cannot bank time for the next question either. So without further ado, let's jump right into the questions. So this first one, we're going to start with you, Grant, on this one. Is on economy and jobs. So many Canadians recall when a single income such as that of a postal worker, assembly line worker, or rig hand was sufficient to support a family. Today, that is increasingly no longer the case. So what specific measures would you propose to meaningfully improve affordability and economic security for everyday Canadians?
I'll tell you what, I think we need to look at immigration because our young people can't get jobs because new immigrants are subsidized in all of the entry-level jobs. Let's start there. Let's start by talking about making sure we don't have flights to Amritsar back and forth because we do have an immigration problem. It is driving up our housing prices. We had a long time Mr. Poilievre telling us that there was no link between demand and supply in our housing and/or the immigration issue. We simply have to look at that. I know this question is about the economy, but let's start in terms of where our kids and our grandchildren are in terms of trying to get on the ladder. There are many things that we need to fix. We need to repatriate our industrial base to this country. We need to incentivize entrepreneurship again, and we need to stop the flight of funds out of this country. The problem is that our people are leaving this country because we have deeper problems that we never talk about in this nation, and it's rooted in post-nationalism.
Every time he says post-nationalism, he eventually gets
Thank you,
cut off.
Grant. Jonathan.
So fixing the economy, mirror a lot of what Grant said. I mean, there is obviously a lot of people coming to this nation, over 1.2 million a year for the last several years. It is crowding out people in the housing market. It is crowding people out of the jobs market. So those are two very big things that contribute to affordability. The other thing the People's Party would see done is lowering taxes. The average Canadian is paying somewhere north of 42% of their paycheck straight to the government. The American Revolution was fought over a 3%. We have got to the point of what I believe is ridiculous with taxes. So with lower taxes, then we'd have more money to go forward. And also,
I just want to mention something. If Legend said, "What did the woman get medals for being a lesbian?" She's actually fought in combat roles, so you should probably not talk about that. Like, goodness, people. I don't like Bonnie Crickley's run. I think it's very shallow, but she actually did fight in Afghanistan.
Yes, basing our economy off of immigration numbers, not a good idea. But before we worry about our economy, we need to worry about our government spending. When the federal government is bloated and sending out third-party contracts such as Veterans Affairs, contracting out care of veterans to Loblaws, we need to deal with it. The bloating has to stop. We need our middle managers to actually leave instead of just cutting the teeth. We also need our MPs to stop spending excessive amounts of money when we have one person who spends more than the next two of your money. Then we can look at cutting our taxes and making our employment that much easier to manage.
I can generally agree that we need to cut spending, but like the things that she mentioned are actually pretty minor areas of spending.
Fair state. Main issues number one is that this government is spending way too much money. We are both in debt and in a deficit at the same time, where we are making no money. At the same time, we are paying the highest amount of taxes that we have ever paid in our entire life. So we need to be lowering the amount that our government is spending. I see all the time where money is being wasted in random projects across the country where they're not actually going towards the services.
Someone else in the comments was saying, well, she's probably like Bonnie Crickley was probably in a combat adjacent role. She wasn't. She's actually known for being like one of the few women in a like combat facing role in an armored unit.
Taxes, because you pay taxes on everything that you do, whether it be on your paycheck, when you go to the store, driving your car, anything. You are paying taxes, and we want to fight to get rid of as many as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Pierre.
That was Michael. It's my turn now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I feel bad. We got your names turned around on the script. So my apologies, Michael.
That would be Ashley again.
Okay. You have to have one faux pas. It can't be perfect, right? Sorry about that, Ashley.
Just so we're clear, when we go into the ballot box, I'm Ashley MacDonald. Just think of the golden arches. It's close enough to my spelling. It'll work. All right, so basically for me, the Green Party platform believes in a restructuring Canada's resource economy, basically to establish national strategy reserves and critical resources, phase out raw resource exports by prioritizing domestic reserves, processing, and manufacturing. That will in turn create more jobs, create more industry within Canada, take our raw materials out of the hands.
I just want to respond to one thing because I think it is a good comment to talk around. But Miles here says it's sad some of these people seem better than Pierre Poilievre. And what I would say is I really like people like Mike. I know Michael Harris. Michael Harris is a really good guy. I've met him in person a few times. Really great fiscal conservative. But the thing is that a lot of these people, because they're not the leaders of parties, they're not putting on national campaigns, they can kind of say whatever they want, and they don't need to be trying to create a balanced kind of message in order to win the country. They just need to win a riding. I think the Conservatives should get more bold. I think they went too soft in the last election, but you can't also go hardcore libertarian to win the whole country.
And the government is...
Thank you, Ashley. Pierre.
The cause of inflation is government. Cost, yes, it's very simple. Supply and demand. The government is boosting demand and limiting supply. They're boosting demand through out of control immigration and money printing that adds more money in people than new products for them to buy. And they are restricting the supply of things by blocking everything from home building to natural resource development. So what's the solution? We need to cut back on immigration. In fact, we need to have negative population growth for the next several years as more people leave than come. We need to slash bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, corporate welfare, and handouts to fraudulent refugees. And we need to unlock our resources to produce cheap energy and affordable homes. So let's produce more stuff rather than adding more people and more money.
Thank you, Pierre. Darcy.
Thank you. I think one of the reasons I took this position to be the candidate for the Liberals is because I'm impressed with the leader. I come from about a 35-year career in business, and I'm very thankful for it. And I like Mark Carney's government and his approach to leading from a position of experience. He has been the central banker for two major economies in the G7. This is significant. And when I see him,
he was not very good at it in England, by the way, and he was only good in Canada because he did exactly what Flaherty and Carper told him to do.
This is for my crops to be good, and he is working on that by getting the economy going east to west, as well as unrupturing the foreign markets. Also, as an oil and gas guy, I want my product shipped to Tidewater, and Bill C5 has already started the movement in that direction. Thank you.
It literally doesn't. He has spoken to Inuit leaders, other indigenous leaders. In interviews, he's basically said, don't worry, we're still going to do all of the consultations. Wab Canoes walked it back. EB's walked it back, saying that they're not actually in favor of pipelines anymore if all First Nations are not 100% in favor, which means nothing's going to get done, at least nothing fast.
Canadians, and it would ensure that edible food waste still gets put back into food banks and stuff like that, so you don't have to worry as much about how much your grocery bill is going to cost. I also want to put forth a second bill that would actually limit government spending. The $187.8 million that our government just spent in taxpayer dollars, we need to cut that big time. And I want to be the one to do that. Thank you.
You do have to appreciate that even that lady, who also seems more liberal like Bonnie, even Bonnie and this lady seem like right-wing fanatics compared to someone who'd run in like Toronto Centre. Like, to be fair, Bonnie is also probably trying to shape herself a little bit to what voters want, because when she calls Danielle Smith a traitor in an interview, I don't think it's because she's, oh, I didn't think that that Danielle Smith is spending money wisely. She has very liberal opinions on a bunch of stuff, but in this room, she has to be like, we spend too much. And then the two areas she says we spend too much are like really minor process things that if you made it more efficient, you'd be saving like hundreds of thousands of dollars or low millions, not the billions that we need to be saving.
And that doesn't work for me. It shouldn't work for you. I'm focused on growth that works for you and your family, where you have a chance to get ahead. Right now, that means a plan to buy Canadian and build Canadian, to fight for every job, including jobs in the public sector. Saving Canadian jobs is so vital, especially considering.
I'm happy I didn't hear what she was saying.
Thank you, Catherine. Jeff.
Thank you for the question. Ladies and gentlemen, the Christian Heritage Party is the only party that I'm aware of that advocates eliminating income taxes and business taxes and replacing them with a consumption tax called a fair tax. That will absolutely leave more money in each of your pockets to make groceries more affordable. I think that was the question, where the question started. Economy and jobs. Anyways.
I actually have a problem with getting rid of the income tax. I'll explain that later, though.
Road is the winner because everybody's going to want to be there and open up their businesses there. I think it would be just a fantastic idea, but that's on the taxation side. But on the spending side, Margaret Thatcher turned England around. Javier Milei has turned Argentina around, first balanced budget in 128 years. There's another government, I don't know its name, down in El Salvador that's turned El Salvador around, believe it or not. It can be done. We can downsize government and balance the budget and make it.
Thank you, Jeff. So the next question, we're going to start with you, Jonathan, just to give you a heads up. So this one's immigration and population growth. So Alberta's population, we've already heard some of this already in some of the answers, but Alberta's population is growing rapidly, raising concerns about pressure on public services, the treatment of newcomers, and the ability of infrastructure to keep pace. Do you support increased immigration, and how would you ensure newcomers are protected and supported while ensuring services can meet the demands of a growing population?
I just want to pause there and just disagree with the premise of the question. How will you make sure that newcomers are supported and protected? It's like, why are you as a newcomer needing support and protection? Aren't you showing up to add to the economy? Like, yeah, we can have a small portion of real refugees. Not like I didn't like the country I used to be from, so I'm coming here now and I need to take refuge. If you're from like Iran and you're like a dissident, fair enough. If you're like a dissident from other countries where the government's coming after you, perfectly fair. Why do you need protection from why do you need support if you're coming here supposedly because you're good, you're going to add to the cultural mosaic, you're going to add to the economy? If you can't support yourself and get with the program, figure out how to work with other people in this country, we don't really need you here. Anyways, so I'll let this go.
The People's Party's position on immigration at the moment is that we need to actually just press pause. We shouldn't have more people coming to a country that can barely keep our own fed. We have veterans that can't afford a house to live in, can't afford food to eat. It's unconscionable. I do believe that there is a place for true refugees if they need assistance to come in while there is unrest in their home country, but I also believe very strongly that when that unrest is done, they should be going back home. We have a great country, and it's not going to stay that way if we just keep letting absolutely everybody in without any qualification at all. That being said, my family was immigrants once upon a time, and I'm not opposed to controlled immigration.
Thank you, Jonathan. Bonnie.
Well, I think Jonathan said it best, controlled immigration. It definitely needs to slow down. We are not in a position right now to take care of our own, much less other people. But again, before we can look at immigration and costs, we need to deal with our government bloat before.
Why can't we do both at the same time? I actually don't understand why, like, oh, we can deal with immigration, but not before government bloat.
They are doctors. They are the skills we are desperately needing, but our government fails to acknowledge their skills, their education. Yes, we need to slow down immigration. Stopping it entirely is a bad thing. Not acknowledging the skill sets that people bring to continue to deal with our country and the issues we've got is also something that needs to be dealt with. We got to cut the government bloat. Then we can afford to feed everybody.
I wish she would be more specific, because when she keeps saying we need lower immigration but not zero, like, well, then name a number.
Because a lot of the times people like to blame immigrants for a lot of problems in this country. And most of the time, you can probably blame the welfare state. A lot of the times, our government is just handing out cash to new people in this country. I think there's a bill that was recently passed in Ontario where our Doug Ford is given around $10 or so billion for hotel development for newer people coming into this country. That is, in my opinion, a complete waste of money. We need to be able to, if people are wanting to move to this country, they need to be bringing their own money to come here safely. And I personally believe it should be the decision of Alberta to choose who is coming into this province and who is not. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Ashley.
Okay. So for me, immigration is one of Canada's greatest strengths. It brings new skills, energy, ideas, and cultural richnesses to our communities. And at a time when many of our regions are suffering labor shortages and aging populations,
Labor shortages. We have massive unemployment rates in places like Ontario, like 7.7% unemployment rates, or like 7.3 in Ontario. Labor shortages. What?
made a serious error when they took the advice of McKinsey and Company and set an annual immigration target of 500,000 people with no plan on where these people were going to live, what communities they're going to go to.
And even he's
how
saying
we
it
were
was still
going
too
to
much at
build
one
and
point.
adapt these communities to all these newcomers. There was no published targets for temporary residents until just last year. We believe in learning from these mistakes. Immigration targets must be thoughtful, transparent, and aligned with Canada's real capacity and long-term planning for both temporary and permanent immigration. Immigration is great when it's done right.
Thank you, Ashley. Pierre.
I agree. And we did it right for 150 plus years, whether it was the frontier pioneers who came and settled the prairies, or the great Italians and Portuguese who came and built roads and founded families across Canada, or my wife who came as a refugee. Her dad picked fruit in a farm field so that he could pay the rent, and now they're a successful story. But over the last 10 years, the Liberals have adopted a post-nationalist ideology. They call it the Century Initiative, to triple our population, to favor globalist interests and multinational corporations at our expense. They've driven down wages with excess temporary foreign workers, with abusing the international student program and allowing fraudulent and often criminal arrivals to come in and abuse our system. That abuse must stop. We must have more people leaving than coming over the next several years as we bring down our population, allow our healthcare, our housing, our job market.
That's not a specific number he's giving, but that honestly is a really good position. I like that he's been saying these days. I think it's really simple and it's really easy to hold them to. Did more people net leave the country than entered? That's what we want. I'm actually very happy with that, because the thing is, it still lets you bring in people who actually have skills. Like, I want that electrical engineer to come over here, but we can move all these TFWs out. We can move all these low skill workers who really can't sustain themselves here. 10 of them can leave, but I'll take in 2 electrical engineers. So I think he's actually landed on something quite effective.
Involved in the University of Alberta and in the Petroleum Engineering Advisory Council. And one of the things that has given the universities all across the country a lot of grief is this student visa fiasco. So I believe the Carney government is presently pausing things and looking at things, and that's
We can probably just not listen to her, him, and the rest of the people. I just need to catch up on some of these, and then we can. I might go to the. I'll probably go back to the regular chat when it's not. I would say the interesting side of the debate is everything Pierre and to his left on the stage, or not his left, his right, my left, or our left. I like hearing their like answers. Maybe we'll try and get the Christian Heritage guy. But I'll go to -1-2 here, who says income tax is theft of your work and a punishment for being productive. The only tax we should have is consumption tax, which is harder to evade. The reason, and here's a good discussion, because I agree with your general logic. My thing is I'm using a different type of logic, which is electoral logic. The problem with getting rid of an income tax rather than getting rid of a consumption tax, really, let's say my main goal is I want to reduce the tax burden by 35% or even 50%. I want the tax burden to go down that much. And in doing so, pursuing that goal, I would lower income taxes and eliminate consumption. Because guess what? Do you think voters will bring back an income tax? You better believe it. Because if the income tax gets eliminated, it'll come back in the form of something that mostly is concentrated on people making over a certain amount. Because it's a political winner to advocate for taxes for rich people. Once the consumption tax is eliminated, the GST, it's much harder to advocate for the consumption tax to come back because it's a tax on everybody. So everybody is incentivized to not bring it back. We already have the income tax. If you eliminate it within 4 years, it might be back, and you may have actually had to raise the consumption tax in order to make up for lost revenues, because you can't have a consumption tax of only 5% to do a full government's budget. You need it to be more like 14% without the income tax. So that's my thing, is that I think that if you shoot the income tax in the head, it will get back up like a zombie. Consumption tax, if you eliminate that, it will go away. It's very much an 80s and 90s kind of idea to raise money back when when income tax were lower and people were willing to put up with that a little bit to pay for some stuff. These days, I think that a lot of people have grown sick of just the taxes in general. But I'll get back to this guy.
They can to ruin this country. They tax as much as they can. Thank you. I don't have much to say this time around, so keep it up. I'm just kidding. No, they've done everything they can to ruin this country as fast as they can. They tax as much as they can. They spend as fast as they can. They give away as much money as they can, and they open the doors to everybody who wants to come here. I believe in controlled immigration, but I believe that there needs to be a pause on immigration until we get our own house in order and get things under control here. So
generally what I assumed he was going to say, but now I'll move on to Warren Peabody here. So says for $5, thank you for that. So funny, see the leftists beside him silently crashing out while Pierre talks. The funny thing is even the lefties on this panel have to kind of sound like they're down home conservatives a little bit. Even the NDP lady talking about how reconciliation was one of the biggest issues to her, even she is having to acknowledge the fact that oil and gas matters, but then she just silently slips in that she wants to change.
About 125 miles.
There's an argument for that.
I'll go back for Grant
But
Abraham.
we need to make a complete pause on immigration at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Oh no, CHP guy lost his papers.
I'm going to stand up here because my legs are sore. Well, I'll say this. My family is an immigrant family. We pioneered land about 125 miles from here. And I'm a very proud Western Canadian. I'll tell you this. You guys are being sold a bill of goods here tonight from Mr. Poilievre because he's talking to you about unleashing our energy sector. I would like to know how Mr. Poilievre is going to do that when he refuses to tell us whether he'll leave the UN Climate Accord that completely restricts our carbon. I would like to know about inflation. Inflation is government. No. Inflation is government debt. And the reason we have lost 40% of our spending in this nation is because of rampant spending that is destabilizing our country. And that is exactly why we have a US president looking at a post-national government that is careening towards destruction. We need to have deeper.
Thank you, Grant. So this next question, Bonnie, we're going to start with you. This one is around government accountability and
I'm gonna pause here because I just want to talk about something that's in the comments that's just like blatantly wrong. I'll go back onto full screen for a second here. Stu Baca is putting out this completely specious argument against Poilievre that Pierre Poilievre has the biggest expense account larger than Trudeau's. No, he did not. Do you know what? Pierre Poilievre's member of Parliament office expense account had more expenses put to it than Justin Trudeau's, because Justin Trudeau doesn't put that many expenses through his constituency association or his constituency office or his member of Parliament office, his MP office. He obviously had most of expenses through the office of the Prime Minister. Obviously, do you actually think that Poilievre is spending more than the Prime Minister? Even the number they had quoted at like what Poilievre was spending on trips, which he's a party leader, naturally he's going to spend a lot. Jagmeet Singh did too, and I don't fault him for doing that. He's the leader. He has to get around a lot of places, go to tons of events, do tons of marketing, tons of stuff to promote what he's doing in Parliament. Poilievre, I think, has spent like a couple million. Do you think that Trudeau's budget in a year is just 2 million? It's dozens of millions of dollars. It's probably like 50 million for the office of the Prime Minister. It might maybe a little bit less than that, but I'm adding in like private jet travel for the Prime Minister, which is fine. It's the Prime Minister. But people have this idea that like Justin Trudeau is like penny pinching in office and only spending like $700,000 a year. Not a chance. Yes, he didn't expense a lot in his MP office because it's more efficient to do so in the Prime Minister's office. It reduces the paperwork. Oh my goodness, I don't understand why people say that stuff.
democracy. So given that several candidates do not reside within the boundaries of this riding, what does local representation mean to you? And what specific actions will you undertake to ensure the perspectives and priorities of the constituents are authentically represented?
Oh, goody. You found my favorite one. I absolutely 100% agree. If you want to run for an area, you need to live here.
Sorry, this annoys me. One, she really has to take the cowboy hat off because the lighting's not doing her any good. She looks like some sort of like mysterious stranger coming in to do justice in some small western town. But what you have to live in the riding. Was she mad in history that William Lyon Mackenzie King, after he lost 2 different times for a seat in Parliament when he was Prime Minister, 2 separate elections, during it, he lost his seat and had to run somewhere else? Was that wrong? Is it wrong that Carney ran for Prime Minister while not even having a residency in Canada? Was it wrong he ran in Nepean despite not living in Nepean? Obviously, she doesn't actually care about that. She only cares about it when it's Poilievre doing it, which is another indicator. She probably is just liberal. It's probably just that she has very liberal opinions on things, and she, in particular, doesn't like that Poilievre's running in her riding because she doesn't like Poilievre and she's not conservative. She can say, I'm a centrist with conservative leanings. What else is she going to say? It's an 86% conservative voting riding, and that's not even counting the PPC or other right-wing parties. And if you added all those together, it's like a 90% right-wing riding. Of course she's going to say, I have center-right leanings. And she's like, oh, we need efficiency in government. But her efficiency stuff is like teasing around the corners. Because that's the most conservative opinion. In certain areas, she doesn't like the middlemen in government, sending large contracts out to Loblaws. In fact, to be fair, if Loblaws was doing a service for the government, it probably is going to do it more efficiently than the government can.
This longest ballot crap, that's got to stop. We need
I can agree with
one
that.
person who will be the official agent. That way we don't have one person sponsoring 200 people. But first and foremost, you don't know what's going on here unless you live here. As for government accountability, I absolutely would use my position as a swing vote within a minority government to push for government accountability. I want to release everybody's spending. Thank you very much.
What she means release everyone's spending actually is already public. There's a reason why the Canadian Taxpayer Federation and Blacklock's reporter has a field day doing requests for information on every single office. I guess she wants it like released publicly all the time, like it has to be put on a website. That could be a fine idea, but I don't think it would change as much as you would think. Like the NDP in British Columbia constantly get caught taking like $16,000 worth of helicopter rides in a month when they could just be taking the ferry. And these are just individual ministers or MLAs' offices. And does anything change? No, because frankly, most voters don't care. And that's maybe a tragic thing. Most voters don't really care about these little spending issues in government, but they're not the macro billion-dollar problems in government. It still adds up, but still, it doesn't mean that much.
Thank you, Bonnie. Michael.
I believe first and foremost, you have to be able to live in the riding to be able to represent it. Number two, you have to be able to show up to all the events. You have to be able to go from town to town. This is a big riding and talk.
Honestly, this is the thing though. It's a leader. I agree. Like you don't want some guy in Edmonton running down in Battle River Crowfoot, like 200 kilometers away from where he lives. Yeah, that's a bad look. The thing is, when it's the leader, you need the leader in Parliament. Everyone understands that the leader just needs a seat so that they can lead caucus. Are we really going to get up in arms like, no, Poilievre now he has to resign as leader of the party, or he has to stay outside in the hallways of Parliament because, like, he doesn't have a seat. It's just not how politics works. And I like Michael Harris, but like the whole, like, you have to live in the riding. Bad candidates are bad candidates. Bad candidates can come from outside the riding. They can be inside the riding. At the end of the day, I want the best candidate. And in this case, because it's like the leader of the Conservative Party, it is the best candidate because it's going to cause the most things to happen in Parliament, having the leader back in Parliament.
Talk to every single person in this riding that you can. And I've seen out of the 200 or so candidates that are running in this election, I don't think even 75% of them are stepping foot in the province. And that's got to stop. I don't know what Thomas or whatever his official name is trying to chorus in our writing here, but that's got to stop. I'm sorry. And for representation and accountability for my bid for the member of parliament position would be, I'm not running for a wage. I'm wanting to be a member of parliament for free. I'm not willing to take a wage. I don't want a pension. I want to make sure that at the end of the day you have good representation, and I'm doing it for free. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Ashley.
Well, right off the bat, I'll admit I do not live in this riding. I live in Red Deer, so I'm adjacent to the riding. I'm not thousands of kilometers away, but no, I do not live in within BRC myself. One of the quickest, easiest ways possible to make sure something like this doesn't happen with a long ballot committee is electoral reform. The Green Party's been pushing for this for decades.
It's not the solution, I gotta say. It's not. The thing is, the longest ballot committee is saying it's pushing for proportional representation or some other system, multi-member districts, having single transferable votes. Again, I've said this before, in 3 provinces, BC, Ontario, and PEI, there have been electoral reform referendums. In BC and PEI, there's been 3 in each of them, and they've lost every time. Voters don't actually like this stuff. But there's this idea on the left that everyone's like a secret progressive that needs to be awakened to the idea that they're progressive. All the voters are secretly progressive, being tricked by the establishment, except when you have a referendum vote and it's not being run. The BC in 2018, they had a referendum vote on changing the electoral system. First to know, the BC Green Party leader endorsed the yes side to change the voting system. John Horgan in 2018, the election where he became premier, he was endorsing it. I think that Wilkinson was against it, or it was I think it might have been it wasn't Christy Clark at that point. Whoever it was, I think the Liberals opposed it, but it wasn't the Liberals opposing it and the other two. It was a close provincial election, so I could see it lose. No, it didn't lose a close. It wasn't like the proportional representation vote side. It wasn't that they lost a little bit. They got blown out. The yes side only got 34%, with 2 of the parties that formed the government backing the initiative. It's because people don't like proportional representation. It makes for very messy governments that don't get anything done.
Liberal Party campaigned on it in 2015, came into office swearing this was the last election by first past the post, gave it to an inexperienced junior MP who had no idea what they were doing, then underfunded it, advertised it, had tiny little town halls that hardly anybody went to, and then just poof, it disappeared. So now here we are, 210 people, most of them on up here as a protest because they're angry at first past the post, now it ignores people. This system needs to be changed. A Green MP would fight for that every day that they're in Parliament.
Thank you, Ashley. Pierre.
A Green MP would fight for that every day in Parliament. The funny thing is I don't even really see Elizabeth May talking about it all that often.
Thank you very much. Look, I'll be honest, having a leader of a political party as your local member of parliament is a trade-off. On the one hand, the leader, in truth, lives in hotel rooms and low-budget hotel rooms across the country. I can assure you, they live in St. John's, Newfoundland one night, and in Sault Ste. Marie the next, and maybe Port Alberni after that. At the other side, though, is that leader can bring a very powerful megaphone to the local issues of the community. For example, getting a pipeline built from Hardisty over to Prince Rupert or to Kitimat, that is a local issue that requires national leadership. Protecting your right to own a hunting rifle, that is a local issue that requires national leadership. Fixing the prison in Drumheller is a local issue that needs national leadership. I will provide that strong.
I'm gonna almost say we can probably just stop here. Like, you guys can tell me if you want to keep watching the debate, but we're probably going to see the same thing going on. You know, Poilievre has a good answer. You know, Grant Abraham. I've even met Grant Abraham. I don't agree with him on everything. Everyone's saying very populist stuff right now. He's going to have a good answer. The PPC guy will have a good answer. Libertarian guy will have a good. Even Bonnie Crickley, obviously, will have good answers because she knows the crowd of people she's in front of, and she's not going to be repeating that I think Danielle Smith's a traitor like she was saying before. And so with Pierre Poilievre there, I think it is a good point that he's making, that like the idea that like, oh, so you're like, oh, you're not going to be talking about all the potholes that are in our roads in our small towns is like, yeah, but the thing is that he's not going to be like microscopically caring about the issues of the riding. But he's also the guy who has the political beliefs that you have, and he's going to be bringing those to a national level. Who like here's even my thing. The thing is, like, a lot of people would say that the problem with Maxime Bernier when he was running the PPC, and I know he's still technically the leader, but really is he at this point? He's just like floating on. The problem with Maxime is not because he's some like fop from Montreal or from Beauce, from the Beauce, but did grow up in Montreal. That's not Maxime Bernier's problem. Maxime Bernier's problem is that he doesn't campaign. Is that he doesn't actually show up. Yeah, he technically campaigns in local ridings like Portage-Lisgar when it comes up, but he doesn't really campaign. He phones in his electoral campaigns, and that's the problem for him. If your guy, even if he doesn't live in your riding, is actually doing the things he said he was going to do and changing the laws he said he was going to do, who cares? Yeah, you kind of want your city councilor to live in the riding, but you know, you want your city councilor to obviously live in the area so that they can see all the potholes and want to fix them. But do you you want him to be like, you want the city councilor to be there. You want your provincial representative to probably be more local. Federal issues become more abstract and more general. And so, yeah, you don't want to have like no rural people in parliament, which means that a lot of farming issues may get overlooked. But overall, the having Poilievre representing Battle River Crowfoot is not going to throw off the representation of rural people in the country. And again, you kind of do need a leader in Parliament, or everything gets very strange. Even eventually, Nenshi had to go run up in Edmonton in order to get a seat in Alberta's legislature, because it was kind of stupid him having to sit outside the legislature to get anything done. Graham here says, note, Bonnie Crickley is on Blue Sky. So yeah, I think that's a good way of summing her up. She was somebody who thought that X was too right-wing, too racist, too fascistic. So she had to move over to Blue Sky. MH says, listen to Grant Abraham. I can jump back to him. Like, Grant's fine. I've met him before. Yeah, I would disagree with a bunch of the stuff that he believes, but it's stuff that he's probably not going to mention at this actual event, at this forum. I'll maybe sort of skip around, but I don't think we really need to listen to like all the Liberal candidates speaking and whatnot. I think I can probably just jump around a bit.
Catherine. Jeff.
Ladies and gentlemen, I call Airdrie home, and I also don't want to be. And it works.
Sovereignty is about, we're interested in the truth. The truth is the Conservative Party voted for Bill C-4 that will criminalize you if you stop your child transitioning. Each of you will go to jail for 5 years. Pierre Poilievre talks about faith, family, and freedom. That's a sham. And I think the other conversation we continue to need to have is what is really going on. What's going on in this country is that our sovereignty is being portrayed on a national level. And the only response is the people of Alberta that have the faith, the resiliency, the strength, the wealth, and the grit to actually stand up to the selling out of the nation. And so while we're talking about this tonight, remember, we are talking about two Canadas, because what's happening in this country is a pandering to Ontario and Quebec to get this gentleman elected, and you're paying the price. That's what's going on.
Thank you, Grant. Jonathan.
The thing I don't like about what Grant said there, and I think it's dishonest, is whenever people bring up votes that occurred under Aaron O'Toole's lack of leadership, where he effectively forced Conservatives to vote for non-conservative things, and now apparently that's what defines you. Do you actually think that Pierre Poilievre supports Bill C-4, the one that was, like the transitioning one, the anti-conversion therapy bill, which basically defines conversion therapy as not letting your child go through gender therapy, from social transitioning to hormones to the rest? Obviously, that's the problem. I would say that Patrick's right. The moderator's pretty nice in all this. But yeah, so like with Grant Abraham, that's where I would start having a problem with him, and where it becomes, again, gotcha politics. The PPC does this a lot. Well, you guys voted for this back in this year, and that means that's what, we can't trust you. It undermines your own point, and you kind of look silly when you're basically saying the other guy's not good because he's not perfect. Like, oh, wow, shock, gasp, a human being isn't perfect. People didn't want to get kicked out of caucus, so they voted for Bill C-4 under O'Toole, probably knowing that O'Toole wasn't going to last so long. So just let him do what he's going to do. He'll be off in the rearview mirror soon. But people are like, no, you should have stood up to him. You should have flipped over a table and say, I'm not doing this, O'Toole. The government can pass the law anyways. Does it look bad on your voting record? Sure. Kathy Wagenthal voted for it. Arnold Viersen, some of the most pro-life Christian people in Parliament, they voted for it. Do they believe in it? Not for a second. But they're not going to put their career on the line. Have O'Toole kick them out, knowing no other MP is probably going to stand up for you if you get kicked out because they don't want to get dragged into a fight too. Yeah, there is a chance that you could maybe force him out if you do this. But I have to disagree with this. But Kenzie Kackman says, why it's called integrity. Okay, you actually have to deal with real life. Your leader saying, if you don't vote for this, I'm going to kick you out. And you vote, and you don't vote for it, you get kicked out. And by the way, nobody's going to remember why you got kicked out in 5 seconds. Nobody does. The thing is, you have to fight hard for anyone to remember why you got kicked out and for it to actually make a political difference. I am totally fine with people playing the long game, having to vote for the wrong thing, knowing that in the long run, this guy's not going to be around anymore, and then I can start saying what I want again. There's a lot of MPs who even were not allowed to speak out during this federal election because people like Jenny Byrne were putting extreme controls over what people could say during the campaign, which is a big reason why the Conservatives lost. The speech control was insane. But as a candidate, are you going to pick a fight with Jenny in the first week of the campaign when they can whack you, replace you with somebody else, and nobody's really going to care what you have to say afterwards? Or why not wait for the campaign to go over however it's going to go, and then afterwards, like a Jamil Javani or somebody else, you just start saying whatever you please and say, yeah, whatever, try and control what I say. Everyone likes me, and it's not in a campaign where you can revoke my candidacy. And if you kick me in a caucus now, you're going to look stupid. That's how you move in politics. You have to pick your moment, and obviously there are moments where you have to stand up for integrity issues. Like if a party in general is going the wrong way, you have to stand up and stop them. If it's just the leader, and right now, if you stood up for him to him, you would get kicked out of caucus, and no one's really going to stand up for you, and no one's going to even remember why you were having this fight. That's a bad move, in my opinion. Again, strategy matters. You have to pick your moments. And the thing is, like, I'm not someone who's like, just do whatever the party's telling you to do. I help run the One BC party in British Columbia. I'm a legislative advisor for Dallas Brody and Tara Armstrong in British Columbia. I absolutely know there is a moment when you leave and you do not look back, which is what Tara Armstrong ended up doing after Dallas Brody was kicked out for completely stupid reasons. Eventually, you actually do need to put your money where your mouth is. But Bill C4 under O'Toole, which all the media coverage around it was like really warped. It was all around the idea that it's like, oh, it's stopping kids from being beaten up for being gay. That's not what the bill was about. By the way, if you don't think it's already illegal to beat up a child, you're stupid. Obviously, it was already electric shock therapy on gay people was already illegal, obviously. And so to have your whole political career go down in flames over a fly-by-night vote that the media has already poisoned the well on, over an issue with leadership that will be solved in time when O'Toole goes away, that would be, at least in my opinion, a bad thing to do. And by the way, I'm not being animated like I was mad at the person's perspective for saying that you should have integrity. I get the integrity point, and I don't think there's nothing lacking in integrity in waiting it out a little bit and then moving when you can. What lacks integrity is when you never move and there is no stake. There is no moment when you would ever say, I have to leave. Warren Peabody says for $2, Carney is acting conservative. How does Pierre stand out? Well, and I think Poilievre has actually shifted to the right since the election in a way that if he was acting like it during the election, he would have won easily, in my opinion. The problem is that the Conservative Party started playing it really safe. They stopped really campaigning hard on any issue. They weren't running on a big vision. They were running on like the Liberal Party, or Carney would say, I'm going to cut your taxes by 1% under $50,000. And Poilievre would say 2.25%. And it's like, well, it is more. It's technically, it's double. But does anyone care? Does the average voter really make a nuanced difference between the guy who's going to save them $300 and the guy who's going to save them $625? I think not. And so if you're going to run on a big tax issue, you got to say, I'm going to reduce taxes across the board by 20%, by 25%. That's when you get people's attention. You got to run on slashing immigration, not reducing it a little bit. You got to run on like some socially conservative or culturally conservative issues that really shake up the field, that get people to realize, yeah, by the way, Trump's not running in this election, but the Liberals are running on this insane social policy you should focus on. I think there wasn't enough pointing at the Liberals' insane positions on a lot of issues. Cora says for $10, a small thank you. Well, thank you back, Cora, for helping support the show. But should we go back? I think we still have this going on. Maybe I'll go to live and see what's going on.
Unleashing our resources.
Want to privatize it. And I get what Michael's saying about how he supports a blended system of sorts, or this hybrid system of a blended private and public. But if we don't have enough doctors and nurses and social workers and psychologists and pharmacists now, we're going to have even less when the for-profit side can pay them more than what the government can pay them. So this doesn't actually fix the system. It's going to make it even worse. A green government believes that everyone deserves a doctor, deserves access to pharmacare, deserves access to dentistry, mental health services, therapy, and so on. We would pass a primary care health act that would guarantee every citizen's access to these much.
Thank you, Ashley. Pierre.
Quite frankly, it's the Liberal government in Ottawa that has denigrated our healthcare system. To start with the out of control population growth of particularly the last 5 years, our ratio of patient to doctor is now worse than it's ever been. We need to cap immigration to ensure that we can add doctors and nurses faster than we add people. Second, we need to grow our economy faster because our federal healthcare transfer grows at the same rate as our economy. And that means unleashing our resources, and lowering taxes, and making our economy stronger. And third, we have 20,000 immigrant doctors, 32,000 immigrant nurses who cannot work because they can't get a license. We have a red seal that's already in place for the trades, a national license for the licensed trades. We should do the same thing with a blue seal based on a high standard that immigrant doctors can take a test, prove they're qualified, and get to work in our hospital.
Thank you,
I'm
Pierre.
going to keep skipping ahead as we go on because I think that we don't really need to hear all these people's opinions on all these issues. Like there are 3, 6, not 10 people on stage. Rook says for $5, Doug Ford has been schizophrenic recently. One day he's blue, the next he's red. How can we get rid of this guy? He seems immoral. Yeah, I can't stand Doug Ford. In 2018, if he did what he said in that election, he'd be a great premier. He is at best a mediocre premier. At worst, he's effectively just like Kathleen Wynne. I always support the New Blue Party in Ontario. I literally flew out from Alberta to Kitchener, Ontario, in order to hit as many doors for the New Blue Party as possible. This last election, they didn't do so well, but obviously it was a snap election in the middle of the winter, and they weren't able to get a candidate on every single ballot, but they were still able to score 1.6% of the vote. And even if they don't end up winning seats, I think Ontario is in a bad enough position in terms of conservatism that you eventually need to just whack the party, the Doug Ford PC party, by voting for a right-wing alternative and saying, be more like these guys. So even if they don't win, you're basically saying, be like these people, and maybe I'll consider voting for you next time. But the problem is people are scared into voting for PCs again. Like, oh, but one's that the Liberal wins? We got to vote for Ford. It's like, what are you talking about? Doug Ford literally acts like a Liberal, not like on a few cherry-picked moments he's done something very liberal. I mean, the taxes are higher since he came in. The spending is nearly as bad. Everything is worse or as bad when he got into office. And it's not because he's worse than Kathleen Wynne. He just continued the same policies, which means that the decline just kept getting worse. So yeah. Anyway, so we can get back to this.
Darcy.
The people of Battle River Crowfoot.
And so
It's from
I want
At 8:30.
Are they doing some... Was that literally it?
Provide these care
portion
Break.
out.
Is this literally the end of it? What the heck?
Thank you, Bonnie. So now we are going to take a 20-minute break and come back at 8:30. So get up, refresh yourselves, use the facilities, have conversations amongst yourself and enjoy. And
Okay, well, I guess we have to wait until it comes back to keep doing this. Again, maybe you guys don't want to do this, but yeah. We don't want to keep watching. Veg is like saying, is Grant Abraham still representing Durham? Well, yeah, he's running a few of the by-elections as the leader. I understand he runs that United Party of Canada. So I get that he ends up running in all the by-elections. That's fine. At the same time, I don't really think he's attempting to even get votes because in every single by-election that I've seen the guy run in, he comes like near the bottom of the ballot every single time. And when I say near the bottom, it's like, well, he's a new party. Of course he's going to come in near the bottom. I mean, like, doesn't even scratch above 100 votes, which is difficult to do. You can't get 100 people to vote for you. If you go door to door long enough, you eventually have someone say, I like the cut of your jib, and then they check a box. So that's always also what annoys me when people will hear candidates speaking at a forum and they'll be like, oh, I like that guy's answer better than Pierre. And they'll start like acting like Pierre's not doing well enough. I'm like, that guy doesn't need to actually win. He's just coming here saying the most red meat things he can say, and then he's not going to do any campaigning. Scotty says, looks like more than one half the candidates aren't even conservative. I'd actually say it's probably more like a two to one ratio. I actually think most of the candidates here are conservative. Like Grant Abrahams is generally conservative on the right. Mike Harris is, the PPC guy is, Poilievre is, you have the CHP guy who is. So you have like 5 conservative guys. And then I guess the other people would be I guess it's 50-50 because you get Bonnie on the left, the Green guy, Liberal, the Independent next to Poilievre. You get the NDP, and so yeah, it's like half and half. Michael James says, how many are confirmed on the ballot now? Is this everyone? Oh, this is not everybody, I can assure you, Michael. The ballot, so poor, silly, forgetful Michael James. There are 214 candidates running. But yeah, so you have, there's quite a few people on that ballot out there. They're just not actually giving people physical ballots because you can't give people a ballot with 214 names on it. What they're doing is you just write down whoever you want to vote for. And in a riding where most people are going to be voting for Poilievre, naturally, it's basically just going to be like Poilievre, Bonnie, Poilievre, Darcy, Poilievre, and then it's going to be like Grant Abraham, and then you're just going to like count out of 100 ballots, you're going to count like 75 Poilievre ballots and then like 25 ballots for anybody else. Again, because it's now being written, so many of these longest ballot committee candidates aren't even going to get a single vote. Because the reason they were getting votes in the previous by-elections was because when you're given a vote sheet of 91 names, eventually some people with bad vision or people who just vote out of obligation but they don't really care who they vote for, they just circle a name and they go. And if anything, they're like, the ballot's hilariously long, and they just check one off and they're like, I don't know who I voted for, and then they run out. You get like a good like 1% of people in a riding who don't vote seriously, and so you'll get a little bit of that. Yes, and Sison says they allow misspellings if it's readable. So if it's obviously not, like if it's between 2 candidates' names that you misspelled, and because they had like 2 similar last names, and if it was like Mike Smith or Mike Smythe, and you spelt it somewhere in between the SMYTH version and SMITH, they'd probably just like shred the ballot. But obviously, I don't think that you need a ballot of like 10,000 candidates to have people with that similar of a name. Justin Joe, Wyatt, what's your favorite NES game that you've had on set? It would be Battletoads, because I have Battletoads in mint condition in box. CHP is now gone. Are you like up to speed? Oh no, it's not even back yet. I was wondering if you're back and like the guy just abandoned the he just abandoned the forum. I have it live. I just have the sound off in case it comes back. You know what's actually stupid? What's really stupid is that you can't write down the party's name. Why not? If you're voting conservative, you want to vote for the conservative. They can't say, well, it's not, how do we know he doesn't just mean they want to vote for a conservative-like candidate? It's like, guys, if you're saying conservative party, I think we all know you mean Poilievre. If you say NDP, you mean the NDP person. If you say CHP, you mean the CHP person. If you say libertarian, you mean Michael Harris. Everyone kind of gets that. Rook for $5 says, any strategies for defunding the CNC? Is it just vote for Pierre, or are these citizens initiatives that can be done? I assume you mean the CBC, unless you meant the candidate nomination committee that takes place in all the nominations for the Conservative Party. I would say the strategy, I don't think you can defund it in the short term. If anything, the CBC is probably riding high right now in terms of its approval, simply because people like the CBC or pretend to like the CBC because Trump's bad. And for some reason, that means you have to like terrible CBC sitcoms and terrible news reporting, but whatever. Best thing that could happen in terms of getting the CBC defunded these days is simply just putting a lot of attention on this Travis Dunraj situation. Travis Dunraj, the former CBC host, I think that guy speaking out about the CBC and all the bias, if that's becoming more widely known, I think you're going to take a lot of the shine off of the CBC for the average voter, and that's going to become not just something that doesn't turn voters off to defund the CBC, it actually may motivate them if they understand how badly their money is being used at the CBC. Third Tooth says, can you beat that one part in Battletoads with the jet skis? I can beat that part. I eventually have done it before. You're not even wrong here, Riff Raff. Dang, time to go. Oh, night night. Gotta work until I claim refugee status in Canada. Quote, I left because Orange Man bad. Unquote. I bet they'd buy it. You're not even wrong. There is a non-binary person in Ontario who a judge ruled does not have to be deported to the United States despite way overstaying the visitor period to be in Canada because they fear for their life as a non-binary person in Donald Trump's America. That is how shallow that ruling was. Third Tooth says, is there any point to sending an email to CPCHQ telling them I'm not giving them another dime until they clean house? I think that does honestly get noticed if you're very specific saying I want these things done and then I'll donate. If other people were doing the same thing, they would start to pick up on a trend. If like a few hundred people said that, that probably represents a lot more people who think that but just didn't send the email in. But yeah. JRW says CTV is worse now, these over CBC, lol. I assume you mean like the CBC's worse or CTV News is worse in their coverage. Yeah, I'd agree. They're more biased to the left, but the problem with the CBC is I find the CBC is better at pretending to be neutral. So even though they are less overtly to the left, they're also better at convincing people they're not on the left when they absolutely are. Looks like we are going to have the forum coming back in a second here. It would have been nice if we could have actually had some debate on the stage. That would have been more interesting. Ferris Sterling says, worst Liberal, Bonnie Crickley or Rosemary Barton. That's an easy one. It's Rosemary Barton all the way. She's easily the worst. Scotty says, why is it so easy for the Liberals to just ignore big issues and watch them go away? I don't know what you mean by like so easy for them to ignore big issues. Maybe you mean like scandals. Anytime they are caught with a scandal, they can kind of just wait it out and eventually the media coverage goes away. And I think it's because a lot of people in the media, if that's what you mean, kind of want them to get away with it. So they're perfectly fine. Volta says, Poilievre, the career politician. To comments like this, I always just say, okay, and it doesn't really matter. Is the guy doing the right things in office or is he not? And I have criticisms of Poilievre. Obviously, you're going to have criticisms of any politician, even if you agree with them on a lot of issues. I thought he ran too soft of a federal campaign, and that's why he lost. He kind of basically the campaign started becoming about, oh, Poilievre is too much like Trump, and that's why a lot of like older liberal people ended up really showing up to vote liberal because they were scared of Trump, and Poilievre is like Trump, which is silly because he actually ran a very soft campaign, and obviously no, he is not, and also like again, who's still better on the policies? But Poilievre ended up not saying anything interesting enough in the election, so the election started being about things other than his ideas, which isn't a good thing for the Conservative Party. If you're advocating for a change in government, you need to advocate for a big change, not a little change. Mason Guy says, Wyatt, how come every time we have a political event, especially with Conservatives, they never open with our anthem? Why the native land trash first? Well, this isn't a Conservative event, to be fair. And to be fair, even at conservative events, I don't really hear them ever doing land acknowledgements. And, people don't always open up with the anthem just because, time allotments and I don't know, depends. This isn't a conservative event. I think maybe they should start with the anthem. Really, I think they should just get along with the events most of the time. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Mike Purdue says it exactly. There's good and bad, career politician or not. But let's get back onto the stage. Seems like they just forgot to turn the camera back on, and now it's back.
Room, like if you're a representative of this riding, Damien got what, 84, 85%? So there's about 16% didn't vote for the Conservatives. Yeah, it's an amazing thing to get that many votes, but those 16% of you that didn't vote for him were ignored. You have no say for the next upwards of 4 years. So I believe we do need to reform the system so that people's votes actually matter. As for the type of system that I would implement, that would have to be studied, analyzed, look to see what the most fair and comprehensive system is so that everybody's vote can count as much as possible. We don't want to leave anybody out of the democratic process so they feel that their voice is ignored and people stop it.
Thank you, Ashley. Pierre.
Well, first of all, this longest ballot thing is a total scam and it must be stopped. I'm the only leader that this interest group seems to have targeted for some reason, and that I find interesting, but it is a total scam and there is no good public interest reason to do it. I think anybody should be allowed to run, but they should have to get unique signatures and they should have a unique financial agent. If you did that, you'd guarantee this would never happen again. God willing, if I have your support and I get to Parliament, I will put forward legislative changes to make sure that this never happens again anywhere in Canada. And speaking of accountability, we need to build on Stephen Harper's Accountability Act to crack down on the loopholes that Liberals, including Mark Carney, have exploited. We need to ensure that our leaders are working for you and not for their private profit. Thank you.
Seems like they turned the mics up, which is nice.
Thank you, Pierre. Darcy.
My comments are similar on the longest ballot. I think it's been quite problematic, and I think especially people who have difficulty initially when the ballot was going to be very long in physical length would be just difficulty handling it. And now that it's different, it's going to be a pain, and it confuses everything, and I do not think it has a place, but it is put together as part of our system. So I will just say I don't like it, and I would like that I think we should try and change it. As far as being a Canadian, and as far as our system and the workability in the world, I had the privilege as international president of the Society of Petroleum Engineers of traveling in that term of 3 years to 49 different countries. And my pride grew with every country because there are so many places that have systems that don't work, systems that are corrupt. So I stand here as a proud Canadian, and I'm proud of our Prime Minister, and I'm proud of our system, and it works generally, and I would love to.
Thank you, Darcy. Sarah.
I have said many times that I think healthy protest is a good idea, but the way the longest ballot is going about it is not okay. They've kind of hindered us here. And I do agree that we should have electoral reform. And I do agree with Ashley when saying that it is something that needs to be studied. It is something that we need to ensure that everybody is getting they feel like their voice is heard. And it's unfortunate that this is where we're at, but we're Albertans, we're tough. We can get over this. We can write a name. Nobody thinks we can, and I know we can. So please go find the name that you want. Please write it down. My last name is spelled Spanier. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Catherine.
Electoral reform is exactly what the longest ballot wanted. So the fact that everybody here is talking about electoral reform means that their form of protest is in fact working.
No, we're talking about how to stop them. Nobody's talking about the merits of proportional representation. They're talking about how the people pushing it are idiots and that we need to prevent people from signing signatures for phantom candidates that aren't actually running yet. That's the problem.
Actually didn't just start neither. They were doing this since 2021. So it's interesting, and they are targeting Pierre because he's, sorry, but almost a circus. Look at the stuff going on around him. They know it's going to cause an uprising, and they want people to speak out about it.
About what? What are people saying about proportional representation or any other electoral system? Other than saying these people are idiots, let's stop them. And I heard she's trying to get a jab in there because that's the only way she's going to be relevant in this debate. She's going to get freaking like 5 votes.
So if that's what they're looking for, is that attention, that's exactly what you're giving them. So electoral reform, having that happen, shh. You're giving them what they want.
Thank you, Catherine. Jeff.
Thank you. I misspoke earlier. I said there was a bill discussed in Parliament about proportional representation. Actually, it was a motion to talk about proportional representation, not a bill on the subject. And again, all but 3 Tory MPs and the Liberals voted against it. So first past the post works for the major parties because, of course, they benefit from the system. They're not interested in looking at alternatives. If we had if we had proportional representation in this country, and a small party like the Christian Heritage Party ran 343 candidates across the country and got, say, 2% of the vote, we'd have 2% of the seats, and we'd have a voice in Parliament. Who care about the social.
He has to be careful, though, because a lot of people who propose proportional representation put in arbitrary barriers, like you have to get 5% of the vote before you get any seats, to end up preventing people like that from getting in. The people who promote proportional representation tend to be pretty dishonest because they more so just support minor parties in Canada that can win some seats, but they want more. But then they put barriers in place to prevent smaller third parties from also benefiting because that would reduce how much it helps them out.
Social issues that we are concerned about and other issues would have a voice in Parliament. And I think it would be a fine thing. And I am ashamed of the Tories and others who voted against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Grant.
We need electoral reform. We need to tidy up the system. But the reality is in Western Canada, even if we had the tightest voting system in the world, we have to recognize that Western Canada was set up as a colony of a colony. The disproportionality of senators and/or MP seats in this country, the way it was set up from 1867.
I'm just going to kind of stop this. I just don't really care to engage with it as much. I also just got to get back to some of this from Graham. Says for $5, longest ballot initiative should target the next Iranian presidential election if the regime survives. If you guys don't know, the presidential election in Iran is effectively a selection where the Ayatollah just picks whoever he wants, and then they run a fake race between someone who's crazy and someone who's even more crazy. Nectarine for $7 says conservatives would have won the election if they didn't talk about life sentences. It was a dark cloud over a sunny campaign. Would have won if they didn't talk about life sentences. For criminals, I really don't think that hurt them at all. In fact, I think the life sentence stance that Poilievre had for not allowing people to serve certain types of criminal sentences concurrently, and they have to do them consecutively. I think that was a big vote winner. Why do you think the Conservatives did really well with Asian voters? Asian voters in Canada are tough on crime voters. They don't like drugs in their community, and the Conservatives ended up making big inroads where there was a lot, both South Asian and East Asian voters. Places like Richmond, places like Surrey, places like Vaughan, some of those other areas of like the north of the GTA. The Conservatives did really well in those places because of the tough law and order stances. If anything, I think that Poilievre's 3-strike policy, when it came to some criminal offenses, should have been turned into a 1-strike policy. You're caught dealing fentanyl once, you obviously should go. You should be put in prison for like 3 years on your first offense on fentanyl, because dealing fentanyl once could kill tons of people.
That all the questions that come into them do get addressed.
Thank you, Jonathan. Bonnie.
So once again, I noticed Monsieur Poilievre skirted the question He said nothing on electoral reform and was angry at the longest ballot. Granted, we all are angry at the longest ballot, yeah? Yeah, I thought so. But no, it benefits our current.
You can't do the "yeah, I thought so" and a bunch of other people have already condemned it and gotten applause. It's like, oh, what does the room think? It's like 5 other people already did what does the room think stuff. But Rick says for $5, the irony is that the longest ballot crushes lesser known candidates. Well-known names like Pierre Poilievre have an advantage, and absolutely, that's why Michael Harris and has been speaking out about it a lot as the Libertarian candidate, because well, does nobody even wants to listen to him because they almost get sick of anyone but the major candidates in the race.
System benefit the 2 big parties. I very much want to see electoral reform. I am currently looking into proportional representation. I am emailing people. It is not on my platform as of yet because I don't know the ins and outs. We need it. You're not going to give it to us. Liberals aren't going to give it to us. We need it.
Thank you, Bonnie. Michael.
First of all, I would like to point out a previous comment on the last panel that we had that Ashley admitted that healthcare workers would get paid more under a private system than our public system. So I just want to point that out. Number 2, I refuse to give any more attention to the longest ballot people because honestly, they're doing this for attention. And this isn't a protest. They're asking for attention. If anybody knows any of those names on those ballots, I recognize for them. They're being supported by the Rhino Party of Canada. They're a joke. This isn't a protest. And in my opinion, for electoral reform, the Liberal government has been promising for over 10 years that they were going to offer us electoral reform and remove the first past the post system. I don't know where that's going. We're still stuck with it. And in my opinion, we need to focus and push towards a ranked ballot system. And that would be what I'd be fighting for. Thank you.
Oh, that's where I have to hard disagree with Michael. Ranked ballot is so bad. What it ends up doing is you have the worst compromise candidates ever because it's not going to advantage any of the small candidates. They're all going to get like 1% of the vote, 2% of the vote still, but they all get to transfer to another party afterwards. I guess the idea is that you're less scared of voting for one of the small parties first because you can rank the more major party after that. But still, what you're going to end up getting is that NDP voters put the Liberals second every time. Even though they don't even like the Liberals, we're now in this stupid phase where the Conservative could get 43% of the vote in a riding, and the Liberal could have 35% of the vote, or 34%, 32%. And if the NDP had like 22% of the vote, they can just throw it over to the Liberal. The Greens will throw their votes over to the NDP, and then they'll throw them over to the Liberal after that. Because they'll just vote for whoever's not better than the others, which means that your representatives end up being these insane compromise candidates that not that many people actually voted for at all. Like even fewer than in the first past the post system wanted this individual. And a lot of other people like begrudgingly voted for them. And when you begrudgingly voted for someone as your 3rd or 4th choice, you're probably less likely to want to engage with them and whatnot. So why is like the 42% of the voters have to like give way to what is like, maybe 50% of the vote, but of people who all only maybe kind of wanted the person who ends up eventually winning? That's why I don't like ranked choice voting. It's fine inside of a party when everyone presumably agrees on most of the issues, and now we're voting for people on a ranked ballot based on small differences between what their priorities are. Someone more of a social conservative, someone more of a social liberal, but they're still all fiscal conservatives. That's a better ranked ballot, but you can have a ranked ballot between very different parties.
Thank you, Michael. So this next question will start with you, Pierre. It's around agriculture and rural development. So how will you support farmers and rural communities in adapting to the growing impacts of climate change, such as droughts, wildfires, and extreme weather, while also promoting sustainable agricultural practices, rural infrastructure, and rural economic development?
Well, there's a lot in that question. Let's start with infrastructure. And I was very pleased to meet with the special areas, OIN and special areas representatives who are working on getting a direct train route that would allow produce to go through Camrose straight to the West Coast rather than having to go all the way east to Saskatoon. Right now, farmers from the area have to add 600 kilometers of extra transit in the wrong direction in order to get to the West Coast and ship to world markets. And I will hope to work with the region to try and get that short line track completed. I know that Damien has done great work on it. But we also need to do other things. We need to get rid of the liberal regulations that are cracking down on our farmers, get rid of the industrial carbon tax that's driving up the cost of fertilizer in this country. We need to respect the firearms rights of our farmers and allow them to use.
Thank you, Pierre. Darcy.
Speaking of fertilizer, I dream of the day when fertilizer will be less than $1,200 a ton and canola will be more than $700 a ton.
Okay, I don't feel like I need to listen to this. Okay, anyways, a lot of this is, not exactly super interesting at this point, just because it's a lot of the same issues being talked about over and over again by people who have very generic opinions on it. Yes, you're right, Greg. That is not 200 people because most of the candidates are fake and obviously not going to show up to a forum. Oh, what else do we got going on? Yeah, I do agree. With Prairie, all Canadian gun rights, not just farmers. Sometimes I don't like the way that people talk about, farmers need guns and they're already hedging as if the idea is, well, normal people don't, but farmers do. I think anyone's allowed to own a gun if they actually can pass a test, a basic safety test, you know what you're doing. That's fine. If anything, it gives people responsibilities and it makes them less likely to commit a crime. Oh. Is there anything going on now?
I don't want anybody to think I'm here wanting to raise taxes or anything. But
Oh yeah, you're going to get into government. You're going to start raising taxes all over the place. Rook for $5 says opposition candidates hammer a visibly nervous Poilievre. That's my guess for the media spin tomorrow. I guarantee somebody is going to cover some of the NDP ladies' comments and Bonnie's comments talking about Pierre and be like, oh, they showed him. And it's like, okay, sure. One of them called him a clown or said he's a circus. And then Bonnie said, oh, I don't think Poilievre understands this or that. I don't even remember what her point was. And it was said a few minutes ago. Is she trying to jab him again?
Culture, many of the farmers that I've gone out to speak to, they're not looking to be at a forum and they're not looking to come out and speak. Most of them born and raised conservative. There's no changing that. They're going to be the way they are. But they did let me know some of the areas that they needed help. They're lacking in hands working on their farms. They're all coming together and working together, and they're aging and they need people to come and help them. Immigration could help, Trump's getting rid of all his people working on his agriculture. We'll take them, send them our way. We'll put them in our farms. They can help us.
Do you know how you can actually help farmers? Lower taxes. The reason why farmers are often looking for cheaper labor is because their taxes are so high, they are forced to look for as cheap labor as humanly possible. When if they had the lower taxes, they would just hire a lot more local people at the higher wages that those people would be expecting, because it's what you need to live on to actually be able to buy a home. TFWs don't require as much money because they're just trying to stock away money for when they eventually return to a country where those dollars go far further.
Recommending 50. The Liberals said they wouldn't go past that, but of course they went past it like it was standing still. But we need to, and another thing is the price of not just carbon, but nitrogen in the fertilizer. They're trying to restrict farmers, Liberals or governments are trying to restrict farmers' ability to grow crops, et cetera, et cetera. And all this needs to change. We need to eliminate, not just reduce carbon taxes to $30 a ton like the Liberals have, but
Thank you, Jeff. Grant.
Well, this is a great conversation. You know what? We need to look at farmers in China and the tariffs that we're paying for canola and get those stripped down. But why can't we do that? Because this nation is riddled with foreign interference. David McGuinty in 2020 made a very clear report about that, ample evidence of severe and sustained foreign interference that's undermining our political process and democracy. Yet we have a leader of a political party here to my left who will not attain his clearance, security clearance.
Hey, that's the truth. He won't attain his security clearance.
This is why Grant Abraham annoys me. He will take a leftist talking point against Poilievre. That's not even true. He's not taking the security clearance because he couldn't talk about the issue even if he got it. And then they would basically look into every single person you've ever met in your life to try and like find issues, red flag you for nonsense. That's why he doesn't do it. But Grant will find things that are not real jabs on Poilievre because he just needs a jab. If you're willing to swing at someone on something dishonest, you start to make me not think that you should be a representative of anything. But I'll maybe go back a little bit because he's pointing and stuff a lot. Maybe this is interesting.
Security clearance.
Hey, that's the truth. He won't attain his security clearance to actually tell you who the 11 MPs were that you were put in front of to vote.
So would I get some more time for that, or is?
Yeah, so I'm going to say that you could have 15 more seconds.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because we had 11 MPs in this federal election that were the direct agents of or under the influence of foreign interference, and you weren't told. And why can't we actually deal with foreign governments that are influencing us? Because our loyal opposition won't tell us. Thank you very much, Mr. Poilievre.
He wouldn't have been able to talk about it legally if he went through the security clearance to find it out. And Trudeau knew who these people were. Carney presumably did. Jagmeet went through the process, and he even came out and said, yeah, I can't say who they are. And then Elizabeth May contradicted what Jagmeet says. There was nobody involved in foreign interference. And then the Hogue report came out that was a complete effectively stonewalling of the issue, saying, oh yeah, some people messed up, we're not going to name them, and yes, they kept engaging with Chinese Communist Party front groups, and they kept engaging with IRGC front groups and all this other stuff, but they were doing so unintentionally. Like, how do you unintentionally deal with a front group of a foreign government who's obviously lobbying you or trying to convince you on things that are obviously in the interests of Beijing or in the interest of Tehran or something like that? How do you not figure that out after a little while as somebody who's an MP? These people are not that dumb. And the Hogue report basically said our MPs are stupider than you think. And a lot of these people are dumb, but they're not that dumb. I think people know what a CCP front group is.
Bonnie.
When I was running around, knocking on doors, did one quick tour of the riding, and then I'm taking my time going around again. One of the things that came up was agricultural innovation. Our successive federal governments, both parties, have sold off our innovation to big corporations. These corporations now charge our farmers royalties for seed, or they will sue your neighbor if your seed blows over into his field. This has got to stop. I intend to fully stand up for my neighbors. And if you tell me that agricultural innovation is the private member's bill you want me to put forward, that's what I will do. Because this has to come back to you.
It's curious that nobody clapped for that, because nobody else made that point yet. And the fact that nobody really clapped for that, I wonder, because again, maybe you're a farmer and you can tell me that that's a super common thing, that large corporations who have like genetically modified seeds for specific crops and they're suing farmers because that seed blows into their field and it starts growing in their field too. I've never heard a farmer or anyone ever say that that was a thing. But I remember there's like a John Oliver episode about that from like a decade ago. And I'm wondering if that's where she got that from. And so she brought it up, because the fact that nobody really clapped for that, it probably means a lot of people didn't know what she was talking about. Like, I've heard of that, but it's not like this widespread thing. And I was hearing it was like a thing in the United States in like the 2010s.
History buffs in this room right now. Does anybody know anything about the Gauss plan by any chance in the Soviet Union? It was a plan of centralized economy that was regulating the Soviet Union. And we have our very own Gauss plan here in Canada called supply management. And it is limiting the amount of produce of milk, poultry, eggs, all of that, all of the above. every single month. And if you go over that quota, well, it's got to go in the garbage. I've been going around talking to a lot of farmers in Drumheller, Acme, and Three Hills, where they have to dump hundreds of liters of milk every single month because of this policy. I'm the only candidate that's on this stage saying that we need to end the policy of supply management now, not later. We need to end it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Ashley.
Okay. So the Green Party of Canada platform effectively states that, and as we all know, Canadians need good, healthy, nutritious food that isn't absurdly expensive, that makes it to the point that we can't feed our families. We have to choose which meals, who gets what meal, and what meal we have to skip, and so on. You know, the Green Plan is to strengthen agriculture and food security, and that is built on the idea that we must strengthen and increase local and regional food production. We need to give, you know, Bonnie touched on it with big corporations buying up large tracts of land. For me, family farms need to actually be run by families, not by a family that runs a corporation and that can claim that it's a family farm and get all these tax breaks and then screw over the small farmers. We need an actual system that serves the people, not these big corporations. We need to create regional food hubs that can better supply the people of this country.
Thank you, Ashley. So this will be our final question of the evening. And Darcy, we're going to start with you. So around education and workforce development, student loans are a giant financial burden to young Canadians, but education is required for even basic jobs. Given restrictions on international students and a lack of university funding, how will you ensure Canadians can access affordable, top-tier educations without drowning in debt?
Good question. We do have one of the best educational systems on earth, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm very proud to be a rural student of that educational system. A ragtag bunch of us would leave Three Hills Sunday night and head up to U of A, and we'd generally regroup at the end of the week and head back to Three Hills. There wasn't much support from us, and I think we've seen some tremendous movements over the last number of years. I think we need a federal government that supports education across the board. We need to support our institutions, even though I realize that in cases it's a provincial jurisdiction. We need to support skilled trades. With the Build Canada program, we need more tradespeople. We need competent tradespeople to be operators on oil and gas wells. We need to be educated at every level. And we have the best system. We need to keep and maintain the best system. Summer job programs, a federal responsibility. That has to keep going. So I think
Thank you, Darcy. Sarah.
We all know education is a provincial issue, but that doesn't mean that the federal government can't step in and do something. We know
I feel like
that-
I can skip ahead on this and you guys aren't going to be too mad about it. Was Grant Abraham going to take weird shots at Poilievre again?
Immigration.
That don't
We're not
make any
exactly
sense.
even sure what happens after the educational visa requires. So it's intertwined. We need to get our country's tertiary, second and third level institutions back to actually the job creation that we need to develop the infrastructure that we have offshored in these last 40 years in terms of a globalist agenda for this nation. And we start building things, making things, smelting things, again, we will actually be the wealth, create the wealth that our parents and our grandparents.
Yeah, I'm just going to skip this. But someone saying is, please tell me Pierre will win. Pierre is easily going to win this thing. You can even just tell from the audience in the room. There's like a small collection of people who will clap for other candidates, but it's pretty much just Poilievre. And there's probably some people who like Poilievre who will even clap for the other guys on the right who, if they say something they agree with.
Give our youth the experience they need for the future.
Thank you, Bonnie. Michael.
First of all, I'd like to give a shout out to the University of Calgary and my fellow students that are watching this live stream. First of all, I just want to say, do not be fooled. The issues that we are facing in this province due to education are completely the result of our premier and the provincial government here in Alberta. We need to see more support for students. As a member and student of the University of Calgary, I see a lot of corruption in our student boards, for our teachers, and our professors, where they are taking massive bonuses every single year, which almost doubles their income. while students are struggling to get by and to be able to pay for their education. All the while, we have a government that is disavowing the ability for people to homeschool, for people to be able to learn their trades. And as Johnny was saying, we're pushing people that to get a good job, you have to go to university, when that is not true. Good paying jobs in this province are from trade jobs, not from university jobs. Let's get more people into trade jobs, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Ashley.
Okay, so
Every time it gets back to him,
to
it's
the
like people are
Green Party,
laughing because of the
post-secondary
low energy.
education and the proper investment of the proper structuring of the programs is very important. We need to look at the jobs of the future, not the jobs of the past. We need to be training people, educating people to meet the demands of the future. I know that people denigrate a gender studies degree, a history degree, woke culture, commie dictators running the student unions, blah, 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 blah.
Fact check true.
Education. They don't go there to get a massive debt. Like when I left university in 2005, I had $40,000 in debt. It took me so long to pay that down, never even to actually finish paying it off. To be honest, it took so long that the amortization period lapsed and the federal government seized it, and this sits as a debt today that I still can pay off. But people are getting even more and more and more in debt for degrees that they can't actually use in the job.
They act like a
Thank
green
you,
guy was
Ashley.
basically
Yeah.
against too many liberal arts degrees.
This generation of youth has been totally screwed like never before. Start with their wages. The government's bringing in unprecedented numbers of low-wage temporary foreign workers, taking away the retail, accommodation, and restaurant jobs that normally paid the tuition of our youth. That has to stop. We have to cut back on that. Secondly, our universities are not equipping people with the right skills. I got a university education, U of C, it was great. But I'll tell you what we need is more emphasis on the trades. We need more of the people who can make stuff, move stuff, fix stuff, and move stuff. And we need to shift more of our resources to making it possible for our young people to sign on to the trades. And finally, we need to remove the red tape and the taxes to build homes that our young people can actually afford, so that when they graduate with student debt, they can still afford to buy a home and start a family and build a Canadian.
Thank you, Pierre. So now I would like to say thank you to all of the candidates and the audience for that engaging question period. So now we're going to go to 2-minute closing remarks, and we're going to go in reverse speaking order. So I would like to invite the candidates again to provide a 2-minute closing statement, and we'll start with you, Jeff.
I guess this is all we have to watch, and then we're done. Oh my goodness.
Ladies and gentlemen, my opening statement, I explained how the Tories and Liberals have been working together for decades to bring us to our current state of affairs. This, of course, includes society's embrace of the culture of death, in which we abort our future, indoctrinate and sexually mutilate our youth, and euthanize our past. Now, many of you will be familiar with the parable of the Good Samaritan. In it, there's a wounded man in a ditch who had an unfortunate encounter with some robbers, and the upstanding religious people of his day walked right by him. Thankfully for him, a Samaritan with a functioning conscience stopped and gave him some help. Now, that man in the ditch today isn't a man. He's a boy who's had it drilled into his head since his first day of school that he might be a girl, or maybe he's one of the 2,000 young girls in this country who've had their breasts removed after years of said indoctrination. Or maybe he's the little old lady sitting alone in a hospital bed, hoping the doctor who just walked into the room with a needle in his hand isn't there to prematurely send her to her final reward. Well, folks, those are the people in that ditch today. And you have an opportunity to be that good Samaritan for all of them by sending the first Christian Heritage Party member of Parliament to Ottawa. If you do, it will awaken millions of Canadians to the existence of the CHP. Some good pro-life Tory MPs will probably cross the floor to it, and God willing, we'll run a full slate of candidates in the next general election, making that election a de facto referendum on thieves.
Yeah, but you're not, the guy's not going door to door to win the riding. I never like when people become grandiose about what they're attempting to achieve when they're not even actually attempting to achieve it. Like, hey guys, if you do all the work and get me elected, then I might do something. It's like, you're not doing something.
Of course, on these many and serious issues. And when you're on the wrong road, moving in the wrong direction, it's precisely what you need.
I agree with
Though- Thus, I believe that the
moral
party that I
grandstanding.
represent is exactly what the doctor ordered, and I ask for your vote. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Jeff. Catherine.
Thank you all so much for coming out and showing us your very, very enthusiastic behaviors, both for and against. You know, it lets us know we do live in a democracy. We're not in some kind of crazy authoritarian regime. We are allowed to have different viewpoints. And although we might not always agree on everything, I think everybody here has the mindset that we want to make things better. I didn't hear anybody saying anything about making things, well, I don't know, making things worse. And I just want to bring a voice of reason to the table. Again, I understand this is a losing run for me, and that's fine. I've been doing this for 10 years, right, Sorensen? Yes, but I'll still be here. I'll still be here advocating for issues, again, that are otherwise ignored by the government. I'm here to fight. I'm here to advocate. In my last run, I will say I was lucky enough to have a number of things brought forward to the Liberal platform. They stole from my platform right here in Battle River Crowfoot, like an inquiry on missing and murdered Indigenous women. They really did that.
No, they did not. My goodness. Was she saying last time she ran here, like in this last election?
But they did move forward on that.
I got looked
And the
it up.
navigable waters protection, you know, we were able to reverse some of the lost protections there. So even though I lost, I still won. I still got things to the table, and I still got things successfully moved forward. So I'm looking forward to doing that again in this run.
Apparently she ran in
I'll be here to
2015. They
meet
like
you all
stole it
again.
from
I'm
her.
not trying to sway you. I get
I still don't think they actually took it from her in 2015. That was probably a pretty common opinion.
Thank you, Catherine. Sarah.
So I also want to say thank you to everybody and for everybody here. This has been absolutely amazing. This is my first time, so this has been really fun. I enjoyed this, but being independent, you know, I get it. It's scary. You make a choice for an
Dude,
independent.
I'm gonna say, people have to stop saying this like there's a chance. They keep having this like, hey guys, so I know it's scary, but if you vote for me, we can do this thing. Like, it's not happening. There's not enough people who know who you are in the riding to even select you. But whatever. I don't get when people do this stuff like this. Rook says this is a losing run. Wow, quite a statement. Yeah, probably still not a good idea to say that just for just for your own party's sake. Graham says our democracy does not equal your democracy. I just turn the volume down because I just don't really care to hear this.
Pull numbers, I can pull funding, I can.
But she's still going on about how if you vote for her as an independent, she can do a bunch of stuff, even though she's not going to win. I'm sorry, she's not even going to come like 6th place.
Listen and we can engage, and I am more than happy to listen to you guys. And when it comes down to it, I really just want to help you guys because I have experienced that same hospitality from many people in this riding, and I would like to return that favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Darcy.
Thank you again to the organizers. Thank you, the fellow participants. It's been eye-opening for me. I'm a bit of a neophyte in politics. My name is Darcy Spady. I'm from Three Hills, and I do not want to be Prime Minister. I would actually really like to represent you in Ottawa on the government benches as a member of Parliament. I've had the privilege in my technical career of testifying before common subcommittees and Senate committees, and I know that behind all the theatrics, and I have a 20-year veteran beside me here, behind all the theatrics, things really get done. Policy gets made, people get heard. I think I'm a person, and I've been heard at least twice. So I really am interested in being part of the process for this riding. This is my home. This has been my family home for 100 years. And frankly, I would love to represent you. We are the best in the world. Our energy production, the people, the women and men every day who are out there in the fields, in the CBM fields, just south of here, they're the best in the world. I know it, I've seen it. They are making the energy transition happening. Carbon pricing is financing efficiency devices on wellheads. We are world leaders. I know this. I've worked there. Our farmers are the best. Our crop outputs are the best. We need more plants. We need more why are we shipping our durum to Italy for pasta? Why don't we do it right here in Battle River Crowfoot? Why don't we build and broaden our infrastructure system, both highways and pipelines, to move oil and gas equipment north and south? We are the best,
Thanks
and
for
I would
noticing.
love
I'm
to be
very
your local
uninterested in this guy.
representative in government, in Ottawa, on August 18th. Please vote Darcy Spady.
It just kind of trailed off there.
Thank you, Darcy. Pierre.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to all the candidates on the stage. I think it's been a great debate. What do you think? A great conversation, and it's not even over yet. And I want to thank all of you. And most importantly, in addition to the great Damien Couric, who's mentoring me and teaching me every day things I didn't know. He tells me, I'm not a farmer, but he tells me if I were that I'd be outstanding in my field. And his mentor, Kevin Sorensen, my longstanding friend who served you. You've had great representation here. And thank you to all the people of Battle River Crowfoot. I want to tell you, it's been a privilege to get to know you better. And I have to say, it's been a lot of fun. It's been great fun to be on the ranches and the farms.
Someone's asking how Pierre's been doing. He's been doing fine. He's doing a good performance, as he should. He really can't go too ham, because or else he looks like a bully. And if he doesn't engage enough, then he looks like he's disinterested. So you kind of have to give a very particular performance, which is kind of what he's been giving.
Leadership to the issues that are of local importance. For example, reversing that EV mandate to allow you to drive your truck. That is a local issue. And it will take national leadership to overturn it the way I overturned the carbon tax. Your right to protect and keep your firearms. That is a local issue if you're a hunter in Empress or Trochu or Consort. Cutting taxes, or for example, letting our farmers have zero capital gains when they reinvest the proceeds in our communities. That is a local issue. Reforming our prisons so that our guards down in Drumheller are safe. That's a local issue, but it requires national leadership. Fighting against the Chinese tariffs on our canola, that is a local issue. These local issues require strong national leadership, and it would be the privilege of my life to provide both the local representation and the national leadership to the community.
Thank you, Pierre. Ashley.
Okay, thank you for that.
All right, Ashley.
All right, well, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. I think we all know this is Pierre's riding to lose here. He's definitely going to win. So please take a chance.
I like how he's just saying that.
Be swayed by fear of, a Liberal MP from your area or an NDP MP for your area or an independent or so on. Vote your conscience. Vote however you want to vote. My name is Ashley McDonald, like the restaurant, like I said earlier, so it's easy to remember. I'm sure they'll accept an MC instead of an MAC. But, a lot's been said about how the benefits of an independent MP from this riding would be, not swayed, not whipped by a party. The Green Party is one of those federal parties that are an unwhipped party. So you could elect a Green MP in any riding across this country, and they will be able to vote their conscience, vote how.
But you definitely don't want them to, though.
Central authority and what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to vote. So your vote is safe when given to a Green MP. They're not going to be swayed by some special interest somewhere. So keep that in mind. Feel free to protest in my favor. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight again. Thank you for the chamber for having this. And thank you.
I'm going to cut it off after it gets to Bonnie Crickley because I don't feel like we care about the PPC guy or Grant Abraham that much.
Backstage where we would all take a drink of water when he said woke, and he's not once said it. So it's really kind of disappointing to me. I was really looking forward to this. All right. Thank you, everybody.
I got to give him that was a good joke.
Thank you, Ashley. Michael.
I'd first of all like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for inviting me out to this debate. There's not too many times that libertarians are invited to these type of things, but when we do get invited, we come swinging like a hammer, as I always like to say. And I've been out here, if you guys don't know me, my name is Michael Harris. I've been out here since May knocking on doors. I've knocked on a couple thousand doors on this ride, and I've been hearing the issues of this ride. And people might be disagreeing with me. People might not be even wanting even to vote for me. But at the end of the day, I want to hear the issues of every single person in this riding so I can best represent you. Now, if you believe that the government and the Uni Party has taken advantage of you, has taken every cent out of your pocket, and that you feel that you can't get by day to day, and if you want to see lower taxes, lower regulation, an end to supply management, an end to equalization, and the right to self-determination here in Alberta, then I ask that you support me, Michael Harris, Libertarian, for liberty, family, and independence. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Bonnie.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bonnie Critchley. I just want to thank the Chamber of Commerce, our moderator, all the candidates for coming out and stepping up, and all of you folks for at least coming out and making some noise. What I would like to say is that this is our home, this is our riding, and while we're sitting back in the back, I believe it was Jonathan and Darcy and I were discussing a certain old folks' home that we all know because we live here. Out of curiosity, who here can vote? Yeah, that's kind of my point. We live here. This is our home. And we sure as heck don't want to be doing this again in January now, do we?
What does she mean by that?
So I have no personal aspirations. I'll say it again. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't want to do this.
We can tell. This is like a very astroturfed campaign.
Important to me that we have a voice in Parliament. I firmly believe that Monsieur Poilievre is too busy with his own personal ambitions to give a rat's backside about us. And with him facing leadership review in January, are we doing this again in February?
They realize if he loses the leadership review, he's not going to resign from his seat.
I am here for you. I am here for my neighbors. I am here for all of our communities. Together, we can make our mark on the map, and we can stand up for ourselves.
Like, that's nice, but that's not actually how politics works in terms of like getting legislation like, you know, passed down the field and put through committee and whatnot. Like, you know, we have a voice. It's like, okay, but what are you going to do? That's the problem. What?
For coming out to see it, and the rest of Battle River Crowfoot for tuning in. With the People's Party, we do not have a party whip either. So your voice would be heard by myself and taken to Ottawa, and I would vote according to what my conscience is and according to what what my constituents ask me to do. So many things go through my head. Sorry. As you might tell, I'm not someone who has prepared a bunch of speeches in my life. I've been working as a mechanic all of my life since I got out of high school. But I do believe that I can resonate very well with most of the people in this area, if not all of you. I can find common ground. I would absolutely love to take your voice to Ottawa and represent you with accountability and openness. So Sorry, I can't think of anything else to say at the moment, so I'll just end with this. I think it's time to put a commenter in the House of Commons.
Thank you,
Good one.
Jonathan.
You should actually
Grant.
start with that.
Yes, my name is Grant Abraham. I'm a leader of the United Party of Canada. We ran candidates across this country, and I'll tell you this, there's Canadian.
They only ran like a handful of candidates, so saying we ran candidates across the country is not accurate. By the way, like again, nothing against Grant Abraham, but he's got to stop wearing these like double-breasted suits, but then also tan pants.
Canadians all across this country like you who know that this country is broken and that we're not being told the truth about what's actually going on in our nation. We don't understand what our national debt is. We just had a throne speech that has approved our country operating without a budget. The Conservatives contributed that by not opposing it. I'm fed up with this discussion in our nation where we don't actually know where we are. And here's the thing that we really need to look at. Justin Trudeau told us that we would be a post-nation state. That means a state controlled by something other than what we are elected, what other than we elect. He told us that COVID would provide us with a reset. We understand that we're overrun by foreign interference. And in the last 3 leadership races and 3 federal elections, when have you heard a Conservative MP say, excuse me, Mr. Trudeau, or excuse me, Mr. Carney, can you tell us what you mean by post-nationalism or what you mean by a reset? We are losing our country.
There actually have been people, including Poilievre himself, who have like called things like that out. But again, I find he acts like he's like innovating in politics while everyone's standing still without really taking a look at what other people actually do.
Symptoms without looking at the real problems in our nation, the real root issues. And it troubles me actually that we have to actually break this down in a debate like this because people aren't thinking. And so I'll tell you what, for this country to actually move forward, we have to look at what's happening. The Liberal government is betraying this nation, and the Conservative Party has continued to enable it by omission. I'm going to tell you the truth, and we're going to start with fixing Alberta and setting it up.
Okay. That's done there, but I'm just looking at the numbers for the United Party. We can like just pull this up on Wikipedia. Dude, he's being a little generous saying he's running candidates across the country. United was running 16 candidates, and they got 6,061 votes. I'm not sure if that really counts as running candidates across the country. They ran as many candidates as the Libertarians. The Marxist-Leninists ran more candidates. The Communists ran more candidates. Centrists did. Canadian Future did. Yeah, like that's not exactly like Rhinoceros Party ran more. Christian Heritage ran more. Like get out of here. I find that stuff very cynical. Like he's acting like he's like a leader of a party while he actually doesn't actually do the basics to put together something that anyone could have confidence in. Oh. Error code fixes says, Wyatt, let us know if you ever run in one of these things. Well, I did back for Signal Hill's Conservative nomination, and I was kicked out effectively just because certain people didn't want me to win. Like, I could have easily won with the amount of support I had. Not like guaranteed, but like, would have been doing pretty well. And considering that my support I was sizing my support up at a time when I didn't even get to go and use the official list to talk to members I hadn't reached yet. But yeah, like, so I guess that was fun. But yeah, I think the third tooth is right. I wouldn't vote for a Libertarian in general, but he seems serious and smart enough to make a go of it. Yeah, Michael Harris is a great guy. I've met him before. Really cool person. And yeah, like he's not running because he's trying to trip up Poilievre and hurt him. He's running to basically promote libertarianism. So I don't see it as like a bad thing. I see it as an annoying thing when you have people running in races when they aren't even attempting to get anything done. I mean, they're not trying to promote anything. They're not trying to work hard because Michael Harris could just put his name on the ballot and say, see, look, I promoted libertarianism. He's actually hitting doors and talking to people. If you are hitting doors and talking to people, I don't care if you don't even get 1% of the vote. You tried. Trying is what I care about. If you don't try, that's when I'm having a problem with you. And the longest ballot committee is obviously putting up candidates that aren't trying. There are tons of people on that stage that are not trying, really. Grant Abraham's not trying to build a movement. The fact he could only get 16 candidates to run in 2025 shows that there's no confidence in this. But yeah. Oh, and but Patrick, notice because he said that there's actually a Marxist-Leninist party. Yes, there's actually not only a Marxist-Leninist party, but if you remember the parties I was, or you listen to the parties I was mentioning, I also mentioned the Communist Party. We have a Marxist-Leninist and a Communist Party because apparently the left can't get along. At least on the very far left, they have to have them both a Marxist party as well as a Communist Party. Yeah, like that's a good point. Ethan Schultz says, "Why does Bonnie think that Pierre will lose the leadership race?" I don't know. I guess it was just something to throw out there saying, hey, if he loses the leadership race, maybe he resigns his seat. I don't think that Poilievre is going to resign his seat if he loses a leadership race or a leadership review, and I really doubt he's going to lose the leadership review. Gotham says, sometimes you do have to vote for the least bad candidate if it was Bloc and Liberals' weak leader. If it will block the Liberals' weak leadership. Yeah, I think that there is a time when you vote for a lesser of two evils. I really don't think that's what's going on here at all. But like, yeah, I would always say that the magic two words for every situation is that it depends. It really depends on what's considered good or bad in a specific situation, and you have to do with whatever's going to be not just the best for right now, but it's going to be most effective in the future as well. But I probably suspect that that's it for this video, guys, because we're already going on for over 2 hours and 55 minutes. So I'm going to be packing it up here. But thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you're not yet a subscriber. Leave a comment after the video is up and do all that fantastic stuff. Thanks for hanging out on the live stream, guys, and I'll see you guys all next time.